Chapter 261. In the clean and tidy room, the youth slowly opened his eyes, a look of bitterness and sorrow showing on his face. After a long while, he lightly sighed. While Xiao Yan was spacing out, staring at the ceiling, a surge of information suddenly rushed into his mind. Yet, he was not startled by it. Lying on the bed, he allowed the information to be infused into his brain. After a moment, he began to examine the final assistance that Yao Lao had prepared for him before falling into slumber. Slowly and meticulously going through this entire cultivation manual. At the end of the information, there was also a 5th-rank medicinal formula named the Recovering Spirit Pill. Evidently, Yao Lao was worried that after he fell into slumber, Xiao Yan's strength would not be enough to suppress Hai Budong. Therefore, he transmitted the medicinal formula to ensure that Xiao Yan would try his best to find the required ingredients within 1 year to appease Hai Budong. Master, rest assured, I will figure out a way to help you quickly restore your soul power. This piece of information, imbued with Yao Lao's painstaking effort and deep care, made Xiao Yan's nose feel a little sore. Clenching his fist, he muttered in a low voice. Taking a deep breath of the air, which carried a sandalwood scent, Xiao Yan's mood gradually calmed down. His thoughts churned in his heart. With Yao Lao now in slumber, everything would have to rely on himself. Losing Yao Lao as a trump card meant he lost the ability to restrain Hai Budong. Although the fire poison suppressed by Yao Lao was hidden within Hai Budong's body, that thing could only be activated by Yao Lao. Now that Yao Lao was in a deep sleep, that thing became completely ineffective. As for the Recovering Spirit Pill, although it was a 5th-rank medicinal pill, Xiao Yan's current strength was not enough to refine it. Thus, the ultimate condition that could restrain Hai Budong also lost its effectiveness. Losing these means of restraint, if Hai Budong were to realize this, Xiao Yan feared that not only would the 1-year agreement be forcefully terminated, but perhaps Hai Budong might even forcefully snatch back the incomplete treasure map he had acquired from him. Although this kind of speculation was somewhat despicable, Xiao Yan clearly understood that cooperation was always established on the premise that both parties' strength gap was not too large. No matter what, Xiao Yan had to meticulously plan everything without Yao Lao as his protective charm. Currently, the only card Xiao Yan could play was the Green Lotus Core Flame. Although Yao Lao said that he had left the bone-chilling flame inside the ring for Xiao Yan to use, he had already tried fusing the 2 heavenly flames required for the Angry Buddha Lotus Flame once, and he truly did not have the guts to try it a second time. After all, that thing was genuinely terrifying. The first time Xiao Yan had Yao Lao's protection, but what about the second time? Perhaps one wrong move, he feared he would be blasted to death by the thing he had painstakingly created. Recalling the various messy situations that arose after Yao Lao fell into slumber, Xiao Yan rubbed his aching head and shook it. However, amidst all his contemplation, he meticulously memorized a few urgent tasks. Firstly, no matter what, he absolutely could not let Hai Budong know that he was incapable of unleashing his Do Huang expert strength again. Simultaneously, he could not let him know that he also lacked the ability to refine the Recovering Spirit Pill. Secondly, he must use every possible method to find the natural treasures that could quickly restore soul power. Only with Yao Lao awakening once more could the dangers he had just contemplated be averted. Firmly engraving these 2 points as the most essential tasks in his heart, Xiao Yan only then breathed a sigh of relief. He supported himself with his hand, flipped over, and sat up, lightly leaning against the headboard. A cold, smooth object suddenly wrapped around his arm. Being wrapped by this cold, smooth object, caught off guard, Xiao Yan's heart trembled. His left hand forcefully lifted the blanket. The blanket was lifted. A small, 7-colored snake with a cute, delicate physique was coiled around his arm. As if sensing the light, its slender neck reared up. Its dark purple snake eyes stared intently at Xiao Yan. After a moment, a look of extreme affection emerged in its snake eyes. It continuously rubbed its head against Xiao Yan's arm, ceaselessly. His eyes gazed straight at the 7-colored heaven-swallowing python, whose entire body, due to evolution, had become much deeper in color than before. Especially after seeing the extremely humanized affection in its eyes, Xiao Yan's mood, which had been greatly dampened by Yao Lao's slumber, suddenly relaxed a lot. A look of wild joy emerged on his face. Carefully picking up the small seven-colored snake, he grinned, hugged it, and fiercely kissed it, laughing softly. "Little treasure. Your awakening is truly timely." Yao Lao had once said that after this evolution, the seven-colored heaven-swallowing python's strength could contend with a Do King expert. Although it was somewhat distant from a Do Huang expert, Xiao Yan would not forget that within the heaven-swallowing python's body, there was an even more terrifying soul, Queen Medusa. Although currently suppressed by the heaven-swallowing python's consciousness, Queen Medusa could not manifest. Xiao Yan was also clear that if the heaven-swallowing python's life was threatened, that terrifying woman who had once sealed Haibudong for decades would once again break through the heaven-swallowing python's suppression and forcefully take control of its body. Therefore, Xiao Yan only needed to cultivate his relationship with the heaven-swallowing python to be extremely intimate. Thus, if Haibudong truly suddenly turned hostile in the future, or if he encountered a moment of certain death, Queen Medusa within the heaven-swallowing python's body would be his straw of salvation. Recalling the importance of the heaven-swallowing python to him in the future, Xiao Yan's gaze towards its pupils became even more gentle. His hand softly stroked its slippery scales. He took out a bottle of purple spiritual liquid from his storage ring. Seeing the purple spiritual liquid appear, the seven-colored heaven-swallowing python's dark purple pupils instantly lit up. Its tail continuously rubbed Xiao Yan's hand, emitting an eager, hissing sound of pleading. Seeing that the purple spiritual liquid's allure for this little fellow had not only not diminished but had increased, Xiao Yan let out a complete sigh of relief. He felt a little fortunate in his heart, thinking that if he hadn't fortunately possessed this plant that the heaven-swallowing python loved the most, it would indeed be difficult to establish such an intimate relationship with it. Carefully using a small, hollow jade tube to absorb a few drops of purple spiritual liquid, he then brought it to the heaven-swallowing python's mouth. Watching it close its pupils, munching adorably, Xiao Yan couldn't help but smile. He put the purple spiritual liquid away, then placed the satisfied heaven-swallowing python on the pillow. After a moment of contemplation, he took out the lowest grade, most mild healing medicinal pill from his storage ring. He slowly swallowed it, then gradually closed his eyes, sensing the gentle energy dispersing within his body. The corner of his mouth slightly twitched. Although this pure energy was extremely gentle, as it repaired his nearly destroyed meridians, it still involuntarily transmitted waves of painful, convulsive sensations. Towards the current fragile state of his meridians, Xiao Yan smiled bitterly and shook his head. The gentle energy was allowed to completely dissipate within his body. He slowly recovered a small portion of his strength. While Xiao Yan was closing his eyes, the sound of the door opening also suddenly rang out in the room. Several low-voiced conversations and multiple figures lightly walked in. When they saw Xiao Yan sitting up on the bed, they were all stunned. Then, faces alight with wild joy, they rushed over. "Little Xiao Yan, you're awake. You were unconscious for 5 days," Xiao Li rushed over the fastest, laughing joyfully. 5 days, huh? Hearing this, Xiao Yan was stunned, then smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Are you well?" Xiao Ding walked over with a smile, his eyes showing joy, and he asked with a smile. "I'm not dead yet, for now." Xiao Yan's mouth slightly curved, and he said with a smile. "That boy. You truly hide your true capabilities. I didn't expect you really went and slaughtered the Mo family great elder." Xiao Li patted Xiao Yan's leg, laughing loudly. "Haha, old Mr. Hai told us. But only we two brothers know, it hasn't been spread outside." Xiao Ding stood on the side, seeing Xiao Yan's surprise, pointed to Hai Budong behind him, and explained with a reserved smile. "Old Hai, thank you. If not for your help this time, I truly would have suffered a great loss." Looking deeply at the old man behind Xiao Ding. Without Yao Lao as a trump card, Xiao Yan felt for the first time that a Do Huang expert could indeed exert such powerful pressure on people. Haha, it was nothing more than lifting a hand. But brother Xiao Yan truly makes me admire you a little. The explosion you created that day was too terrifying. In response to Xiao Yan's thanks, Hai Budong smiled and waved his hand. He gave Xiao Yan a thumbs up. The admiration in his laughter was not feigned. It was just a momentary impulse, that's all. Xiao Yan smiled bitterly and shook his head. I know it was definitely a momentary impulse. A normal person would absolutely not think of such a thing. Hai Budong joked, his gaze sweeping over Xiao Yan's body. He frowned and said, your injuries seem very serious, huh? Haha, as long as I have a single breath left. I can make myself more tenacious than a cockroach. Xiao Yan said with a faint smile. Since you can even create that thing, I really don't doubt those words. Seeing that Xiao Yan was not overly worried about his injuries, Hai Budong slightly nodded. This person truly had many unrevealed cards. After exchanging polite words with Hai Budong, Xiao Yan tilted his head and told Xiao Ding and Xiao Li about 10 types of medicinal ingredients. He then asked them to quickly help him procure them. After watching the two Xiao Ding brothers nod and leave, Xiao Yan then turned his gaze towards Hai Budong. He smiled faintly, took out a pen and paper from his storage ring, and under Hai Budong's confused gaze, he wrote down a few rare medicinal ingredients, whose names alone revealed their rarity. Old Hai, I won't be overly polite about the life-saving grace this time. These few medicinal ingredients are the main ingredients for refining the recovering spirit pill. I'm giving them to you. If you are lucky enough to encounter them sometime, find a way to obtain them. When the ingredients are complete, I will immediately begin refining to help you, handing the paper to Hai Budong. Xiao Yan said with a faint smile. Hearing this, Hai Budong was stunned at first. Then, a look of wild joy surged onto his aged face. His two hands tremblingly received the paper, meticulously memorized the ingredients written on it, then solemnly put the paper away. He cupped his hands to Xiao Yan and honestly said, Brother Xiao Yan, seeing you treat me so frankly, this old man is immensely grateful. My Hai Budong said I will protect you for 1 year, and I will certainly wholeheartedly abide by it. You can rest and heal with peace of mind. During this time, even if the cloud Mist Sect Master comes looking, this old man will stand firm for you. Looking at Hai Budong's righteous spirit, Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. Giving him a few ingredients from the medicinal formula was indeed the right decision. Not only did it appease him, but it also earned him some trust. Next, I need to wholeheartedly focus on healing. The journey to the Cloud Mist Sect is only about 2 months away, it won't be long. Leaning lightly against the headboard, Xiao Yan muttered in his heart. Inside the clean and spacious room, faint mist rose in the air, shrouding the room in a slight haze. In the center of the room, a large wooden tub was placed. Inside the tub was a bluish-green liquid. The youth's body sat cross-legged within it, his eyes closed in contemplation. His two hands forming cultivation seals. He allowed the gentle energy in the bluish-green medicinal liquid to slowly penetrate his body, thread by thread, repairing the nearly destroyed meridians. As the cultivation time dragged on, the color of the bluish-green liquid in the wooden tub gradually faded. Finally, the bluish-green color completely vanished, replaced by a pot of clear water. Showing the bottom. Plop. A small snakehead suddenly rose from the water surface, its tail continuously paddling the water, its pale purple snake pupil showing joy. Sensing the water bubbles around him, the energy within the liquid had been almost completely absorbed by his body. Xiao Yan slowly opened his eyes. Seeing the heaven-swallowing python playing beside him, he smiled faintly. He carefully twisted his body. After a moment, he slowly exhaled a mouthful of murky air, muttering softly, the healing liquid prepared by Master is indeed effective. In just 3 days, those ravaged meridians have become much more flexible. I suppose they can now withstand Do Qi circulation, right? In the 3 days since waking up, Xiao Yan had Xiao Ding help him procure a large quantity of necessary medicinal ingredients. Then, gritting his teeth and enduring the pain caused by Do Qi circulating through his meridians, he commanded the only drop of energy liquid in his cyclone to transform into the flame of Do Qi, only then managing to refine the somewhat difficult medicinal liquid. With the first batch of medicinal liquid, Xiao Yan's recovery speed significantly increased. After continuously soaking in the medicinal liquid for 3 days, The ravaged meridians in his body had gradually escaped the miserable state of breaking upon a single blow just a few days ago. Standing up from the wooden tub, Xiao Yan dried his body. He casually put on a set of clothes. Raising his hand, a faint green light drifted out from his storage ring. It finally transformed into a green lotus, hovering in front of Xiao Yan, radiating a faint green glow. Lightly tapping the wooden tub with his toe, Xiao Yan gently flew onto the green lotus and sat down cross-legged. He once again formed cultivation seals, slowly closing his eyes. Not long after Xiao Yan entered the cultivation state, the surrounding space slightly fluctuated. Faint specks of energy penetrated the green lotus's halo, then continuously surged into Xiao Yan's body. In the beginning, every time energy entered his body, Xiao Yan's face slightly trembled. However, as the energy continuously surged in, Xiao Yan became accustomed to the pain, able to disregard this sensation. He lightly gritted his teeth, refining and purifying the slightly speckled energy, allowing it to dissolve and enter his meridians and body. Then, he immersed his mind, sensing the power within his body slowly reviving. In the time that followed, Xiao Yan proceeded step by step according to the cultivation schedule left by Yao Lao. And the terrifying injuries in his body were also gradually recovering at an encouraging speed. Judging by this progress, 1 month's time should be enough to restore him to his previous state. During his peaceful cultivation, Xiao Yan used a lot of his free time to resume his identity as an alchemist. Every day, he asked Xiao Ding to procure large quantities of medicinal ingredients. Then, he refined some semi-decent healing medicines for them. During the pill refinement process, Xiao Yan made an unexpected discovery. Originally, his flame control ability was not sufficient to refine the recovering chi pill, which was almost categorized as a third-rank auxiliary medicinal pill. However, this time, he was surprised to find that for some unknown reason, his flame manipulation ability had almost more than doubled. And the recovering chi pill could actually be refined by him. Although the failure rate was still somewhat high, he at least had success. After his surprise, Xiao Yan realized in his heart that this must have something to do with the angry Buddha lotus flame he created before. Xiao Yan's control over the green lotus core flame could almost be described as a complete mess. The only way he could use it before was by enveloping the heavenly flame onto his fist to increase attack power, or by using the most crude method of shooting it out. Furthermore, when shooting it out, Xiao Yan was incapable of continuously controlling its direction. Therefore, if the shot flame did not hit the enemy with one strike, that attack would consume a colossal amount of energy to no avail. Whenever he recalled Yao Lao's fluent, smooth, and natural manipulation of the bone-chilling flame, Xiao Yan was filled with envy. Earlier, during the battle with the eight-winged Black Serpent Emperor, if Yao Lao had been controlling the flame instead, Xiao Yan dared to assert that the eight-winged Black Serpent Emperor would certainly have been in a miserable state, unlike when he controlled the bone-chilling flame and was even mocked by the opponent. With Yao Lao's manipulation ability, he could release an extremely minute trace of bone-chilling flame. Then, sticking close to the ground, he would silently penetrate near the target. Then, he would launch a sudden attack. In this way, even from a long distance, he could, without anyone noticing, turn the opponent into an ice statue or a pile of ashes. This kind of flame control could be called bizarre. Xiao Yan secretly craved it countless times in his heart. However, let alone his former ability, even now, because he coincidentally created the angry Buddha lotus flame, that terrifying object that shook even Do Huang experts, which dramatically increased his flame control ability, he still had a huge gap before reaching Yao Lao's level. Having gained this determination and idea after the last battle with the eight-winged Black Serpent Emperor, Xiao Yan subjected himself to an almost harsh standard during this period of pill refinement. Although Xiao Yan's body currently had an extreme lack of Do Qi, the main energy required for manipulating the heavenly flame was the continuously surging soul power, which was precisely what Xiao Yan had in abundance at this time. Therefore, within the courtyard, which was filled with a little heat, Mo-Tai mercenaries continuously carried various medicinal ingredients in. Then, when they came out, they all carried large piles of jade bottles with expressions of reverence. These jade bottles were not only filled with high-grade healing medicines that were extremely rare in Stone Desert City, but also contained some recovering chi pills, which were rare to see on the market and difficult to buy even with money. However, in that courtyard, in the hands of the black-robed youth, they were practically piled in the corner like ordinary garbage. Such extravagance truly made everyone's eyes and mouths gape. This was indeed an extremely decisive alchemist. As the days passed, the Mo-time mercenaries coming and going in the courtyard to deliver ingredients and retrieve medicinal pills gradually became numb. After all, no matter who it was, staying in this kind of environment, they would no longer be like they were in the beginning, staring blankly at a bottle of medicinal pills for a long time. Xiao Yan in the courtyard seemed to have abandoned silent cultivation. Every day, after completing his healing process, he would sit in front of the medicinal cauldron, continuously practicing flame control until his spirit felt somewhat strained. Only then would he rest. Under this kind of arduous training, Xiao Yan could clearly perceive that through this relentless, sleepless practice, his ability to control the heavenly flame was increasing step by step. Inside the courtyard, Xiao Yan sat cross-legged on a stone chair. In front of him, in the dark red cauldron, the faint green flame fiercely surged. A wave of scorching heat, even from afar, could be felt. His 10 slender fingers lightly stretched out in front of him. His 10 fingers flickered, and the green flame inside the cauldron also danced accordingly, its movements as agile as a sentient fire. Spirit. Xiao Ding and Xiao Li silently stood by the door, watching Xiao Yan's non-stop hand seals. Their expressions couldn't help but gasp in admiration. To be able to control the flame to such an extent, in their eyes, was somewhat unimaginable. However, looking at Xiao Yan's slightly furrowed brow, he still seemed somewhat dissatisfied with this level. The flame inside the cauldron surged. For a moment, Xiao Yan lightly raised his pupils, flicked his finger, and a gust of force sent the cauldron flying out. With a wave of his hand, several round medicinal pills shot out from the cauldron's opening, then steadily fell into a jade bottle. Grasping the jade bottle, Xiao Yan casually glanced at it, then tossed it towards the door where the 2 Xiao Ding brothers stood. He then stretched himself comfortably, closed his eyes to sense the injuries in his body for a moment, and his face instantly showed a hint of surprise. Ah, recovery is quite fast. The meridians in his body, after over half a month of recuperation, had almost recovered by more than half. This surprised Xiao Yan, the alchemist who refined the medicine. At the door, Xiao Ding caught the flying jade bottle. He and Xiao Li slowly approached the courtyard, smiling as they spoke to Xiao Yan. "How are your injuries?" "Not bad." Xiao Yan smiled. He said, "Next is the final stage of recuperation. It should be fully healed within 5 days. TSK, you truly are a phenomenon. To recover from such terrifying injuries in just over 20 days. Your physique truly makes people envious." Xiao Ding and Xiao Li both smiled, their expressions showing admiration. Xiao Yan spread his hands. He was clear in his heart that his ability to recover at such a speed was 3 parts due to his physique being strengthened by the green lotus core flame, and 7 parts due to the meticulous healing schedule arranged by Yao Lao. The combination of both factors allowed for such miraculous speed. "Where is Old Hai?" Jumping down from the stone chair, Xiao Yan asked casually. Ever since you gave him those medicinal ingredients. He's basically visited every herbal shop in Stone Desert City these past few days. I think if it wasn't for having to stay here to protect you, he would have long since gone to other cities." Xiao Li said with a laugh. Smiling, Xiao Yan slightly nodded. Those medicinal ingredients were all very rare items. It was highly unlikely to find them in the herbal shops of Stone Desert City. Without extraordinary luck, it seemed that Hai Budong truly wanted him to quickly recover his peak strength. "Tomorrow, I will begin the final phase of healing. Only by quickly restoring my strength can I go find the natural treasures that can quickly restore Master's soul power." Gently stroking the black ring, Xiao Yan muttered in his heart. Furthermore, the 3-year agreement is getting closer and closer. Inside the spacious room, Xiao Yan, sitting cross-legged on the bed, suddenly slowly opened his pupils. He lightly clenched his fist and said in a low voice, "It's time to proceed to the final step, gently stroking the black ring on his finger, Xiao Yan then gently picked up the heaven-swallowing python, who was playing on his lap, and moved it onto the bed. He tucked it into a small pocket, smiling, "Little one, stay quiet and wait. Don't disturb me. If you can do that, maybe you can help me guard a little. Absolutely do not let anyone interrupt me. Understand?" The heaven-swallowing python, having gone through its first evolution, undoubtedly possessed rudimentary intelligence. Thus, it could truly understand some of Xiao Yan's words. It immediately blinked its pale purple snake pupils, rubbed the small pocket, its tongue flicking in and out, making small hissing sounds. Smiling and comforting the heaven-swallowing python's cold body, Xiao Yan raised his hand. The green lotus in his storage ring slowly emerged, finally hovering in midair, radiating a faint green light. He lifted his body, forcefully stepped onto the lotus, and sat down cross-legged. He took a deep breath, settling back into his position. Then, recalling the information Yao Lao left in his mind, he lightly flicked his finger onto his storage ring. Immediately, an object enveloped in thick green light appeared in his palm. Looking closely, it was a tiny fire lotus seed. I wonder if this lotus seed, called the fire spirit essence, is truly as magical as Master said. Looking at the bluish-green lotus seed in his palm, Xiao Yan muttered with a trace of suspicion. He clearly remembered that Yao Lao's evaluation of it when they were under the magma was extremely high. This fire lotus seed was precisely the strange treasure Xiao Yan had acquired while searching for the green lotus core flame. He hadn't expected that the final treatment, as described by Yao Lao, would require the use of it. Gently pinching the somewhat soft lotus seed, Xiao Yan truly found it hard to imagine how much immense energy was hidden within this small, unremarkable object that required 100 years to condense. Sighing in awe and shaking his head, Xiao Yan's two hands quickly formed cultivation seals. He closed his eyes. After a moment, he gradually entered the cultivation state, and his mind slowly sank into his body. A moment after entering the cultivation state, Xiao Yan lightly flicked his finger. The tiny fire lotus seed accurately shot into Xiao Yan's slightly parted mouth. As soon as the fire lotus seed entered his mouth, Xiao Yan's originally fair face suddenly flushed red, like a volcano. White mist billowed above his head, looking somewhat frightening. At this moment, Xiao Yan had no time to check if his external appearance was proper. The fire lotus seed, moments after entering his mouth, quickly transformed into a surge of scorching energy. Then, following his throat, it fiercely and overbearingly rushed downwards. The scorching energy from the fire lotus seed quickly flowed into his meridians. Instantly, the meridians that Xiao Yan had painstakingly recuperated for over half a month were instantly pulled taut, like small snakes being stepped on. A surge of intense pain made Xiao Yan clench his teeth. A faint cold air was exhaled. Tightly clenching his teeth, Xiao Yan's body, sitting cross-legged on the green lotus seat, continuously trembled slightly. The pores all over his body intensely ached, suddenly seizing up. As Xiao Yan gritted his teeth and persevered, the energy that caused pain in his meridians gradually weakened after a brief stalemate. At this moment, Xiao Yan's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. He continued to stabilize his mind, observing the situation inside his body. The scorching energy transformed from the fire lotus seed was indeed somewhat terrifyingly overbearing. Wherever it passed, the meridians were almost completely incinerated by the generated scorching heat, burning away the thin outer membrane. One must know that this thin membrane was the painstaking result of Xiao Yan carefully absorbing medicinal liquid over 100 times. For more than half a month, only just condensed. However, although the thin membrane was incinerated, the subsequent actions of the fire lotus seed dispelled the bitterness on Xiao Yan's face. He only saw that wherever the scorching energy passed, it left behind a drop of jade-like liquid. Furthermore, this tiny drop of liquid, no larger than a child's thumbnail, clung to the meridian wall. Like a living organism, it slightly rippled. Then, at a speed visible to the naked eye, it dissolved into the wall. As the immense, life-force-filled energy in the liquid dissolved into the meridians, the bare meridian wall, originally burned red by the extreme heat, began to quickly integrate with a layer of faint green, unknown liquid. This liquid covered the meridian wall. In an instant, after being tempered by the energy of the fire lotus seed, it actually solidified into a layer of colored keratin. This layer of keratin tightly covered the meridian wall. Its defensive strength was countless times greater than Xiao Yan's previous thin membrane. Following the appearance of this green-colored keratin layer, the pain transmitted from Xiao Yan's meridians finally completely vanished. Evidently, after being strengthened by the fire lotus seed, the toughness of Xiao Yan's meridians had even surpassed their state before the injury. After completely covering the major meridians in his body with a layer of green keratin, the scorching energy transformed from the fire lotus seed also reduced somewhat. It seemed that this seemingly simple jade-like liquid contained the very essence of the fire lotus seed. Even after covering the meridians with a protective layer, the scorching energy still charged forward relentlessly, like a buffalo with its eyes covered. Although Xiao Yan's mind tried to guide its direction, he was helpless. This energy was simply too immense, and trying to guide and control it was somewhat difficult. He worked tirelessly to circulate it. As the circulation increased, a stream of compelling faint green vapor slowly diffused from within. This vapor was slightly moist. Yet it bizarrely penetrated the obstruction of the keratin layer, smoothly reaching the innermost, weakest part of the meridian wall. Then, it slowly healed the damage it had once sustained. As this vapor became increasingly abundant, some of the moist vapor surged out of the meridians, drifting randomly within Xiao Yan's body, oblivious to everything. As if sensing a powerful tonic. Floating within the body, all of Xiao Yan's organs, cells, bones, etc., that were once injured, seemed to suddenly come back to life. Slightly stirring, they greedily devoured this moist vapor. At this moment, Xiao Yan's body was like a bottomless pit, greedily absorbing the energy from the fire lotus seed, continuously releasing a surge of green mist. Through this kind of frantic devouring, Xiao Yan could clearly feel that his body was continuously advancing towards his peak of the past at a somewhat frightening speed. Judging by this speed, recovering his pre-injury state seemed to be only a matter of time. In the meridians, the scorching energy, after circulating for an unknown number of cycles, was eventually controlled by Xiao Yan's mind. After over 100 failures, he finally succeeded in guiding the fire lotus seed's energy along the route of the flame mantra cultivation technique. Following the flame mantra cultivation technique route, every time the colossal scorching energy completed one cycle, it would infuse a surge of green mist into the somewhat dry cyclone. The colossal energy tirelessly circulated along the cultivation technique route. With each infusion, a drop of green energy liquid finally began to slowly form within the cyclone. It then dripped into the center of the cyclone. In an instant, the depleted cyclone once again became abundant. Cultivation has no set time limit. When his mind was immersed in observing the state inside his body, Xiao Yan also did not know how much time had passed in the outside world. He only clearly knew that his body, which was terribly injured, had now been completely and thoroughly healed by the fire lotus seed. However, although the repair was complete, what surprised Xiao Yan was that the scorching energy still ceaselessly circulated in his meridians. Although it had been consumed over such a large amplitude, the remaining energy of the fire lotus seed was still so colossal that it made Xiao Yan's eyes and mouth gape in shock. Based on his judgment, healing his nearly ravaged body only used up perhaps 1/3 of its energy. Truly terrifying. In the meridians, that stream of scorching energy, as if it would never be depleted, continuously released a surge of gentle energy, allowing his cells and body to greedily absorb it. Moreover, although Xiao Yan's body had gradually recovered to its peak state of the past, his body, bones, and cells still did not stop. Instead, to Xiao Yan's surprised perception, they shamelessly continued their greedy devouring. It was clearly a rogue posture that swore not to stop until all the energy was completely absorbed. Smiling wryly as he sensed the power in his body continuously becoming more abundant, Xiao Yan could only sigh in his heart, a blessing in disguise, Without this period of heavy injury, in his previous state, Xiao Yan would absolutely have found it difficult to break through his peak state of the past in a short time. This time's heavy injury, on the contrary, gave him the opportunity to break through his previous peak state. Inside the cyclone, the energy liquid was also gradually becoming more and more abundant. The pure energy released by the fire lotus seed, without any restrictions, fully surged in. No matter what, everything has a limit, and the human body is the same. Therefore, after a period of such unrestrained absorption, Xiao Yan finally began to notice a slight panic. The organs in his body had stopped absorbing, and the cyclone also faintly transmitted a sense of pain. Furthermore, it no longer converted the gaseous energy into energy liquid. Evidently, his body had reached a saturated state. However, although absorption had reached its limit, the fire lotus seed still continued to release its colossal energy independently. It did not care whether Xiao Yan could completely withstand it or not. Noticing this change in his body, Xiao Yan's expression also became slightly unsightly. He wanted to forcefully stop the circulation of the scorching energy, but it was like a mayfly attacking a great tree, completely ineffective. A slight agitation gradually arose in his heart. Suddenly, Xiao Yan bit his teeth and slowly suppressed it. He knew that currently he had no guidance from Yao Lao, so he absolutely could not panic at this time. Panicking would mean utter defeat. Opening his eyes, Xiao Yan's hands were tightly clasped together. After a moment, he forcefully clapped his hands, whispering, "If I can't absorb it, then I'll transfer this remaining energy out." Transfer it out? But transfer it to whom? Not everyone can withstand this colossal energy, huh? His startled eyes scanned the room. Suddenly, they stopped on the heaven-swallowing python on the bed, whose pale purple snake eyes were staring intently at him. "Little fellow, you're in luck." Seeing the heaven-swallowing python, a trace of joy quickly flashed in Xiao Yan's pupils. He sighed in relief in his heart. With its strength, it should be able to consume this remaining energy, right? Thinking this in his heart, Xiao Yan lightly pressed his palms onto the lotus platform. His body flipped out of the lotus platform in midair. Then, he rushed onto the bed. With anxiety, grabbing the heaven-swallowing python somewhat awkwardly. Then, he used all his mental focus to guide the colossal energy from the fire lotus seed along the meridians in his arm. As the fire lotus seed energy was infused, Xiao Yan's arm was quickly enveloped in green light. His middle finger straightened, and a surge of emerald fire attribute energy dyed his finger to look like a section of bluish-green jade. Suddenly grabbed by Xiao Yan, the heaven-swallowing python was startled at first. Then, seeing the somewhat terrifying surge of powerful energy on his finger, it suddenly violently resisted. Evidently, close contact with this kind of powerful energy made it somewhat uneasy. "Be good, don't resist. I won't hurt you." Smiling gently at the heaven-swallowing python, Xiao Yan forcefully opened its mouth. Then, he inserted his finger inside. The moment Xiao Yan's finger reached the heaven-swallowing python's mouth, it suddenly stopped struggling. A fierce glow violently burst out from its body. Then, to Xiao Yan's surprise, his eyes subconsciously narrowed. Xiao Yan's expression suddenly drastically changed. This was because he could clearly sense that the heaven-swallowing python he was holding suddenly became larger, and at the same time seemed softer. The empty feeling around his right arm vanished. Replacing it was a soft place filled with elasticity. The place his hand touched was soft, like a girl's delicate body. Xiao Yan seemed to suddenly recall something. His expression instantly became extremely unsightly. His neck stiffly and slowly bowed down. He only saw a pair of bright, beautiful eyes staring intently at him with a hint of icy coldness. Looking at the cheeks that could be called perfectly beautiful, all the hair on Xiao Yan's body instantly stood on end as if he was electrocuted. His throat slightly bobbed. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His voice was hoarse and dry. Medusa Queen." At this moment, Xiao Yan's posture with the legendary and infamous Medusa Queen was somewhat delicate. Not only was his body completely covering hers, but his finger was also still placed inside that small, rosy mouth. Xiao Yan's eyes stared blankly at the cheeks just an inch away. This countenance could be said to be infinitely beautiful, like a perfect masterpiece of the heavens. Even with such murderous eyes, it still possessed an undeniable and beautiful charm. This woman was practically the desired beauty in every man's heart. Although that soft body brought endless pleasure to Xiao Yan's lower body, at this moment, his face did not dare to show any expression. A look of slight shock flashed in his eyes as he stared intently at the Medusa Queen. After a moment, the corner of his mouth twitched, then revealed an extremely awkward smile. "You. Hello there." As he spoke, Xiao Yan's finger inside the Medusa Queen's mouth involuntarily expanded slightly. Instantly, it made contact with her soft, moist tongue. Xiao Yan's body immediately trembled. A wave of numbness spread from his heart, almost giving him the impulse to fiercely suck on that rosy tongue. Of course, although he had this impulse in his heart, Xiao Yan dared to confirm that if he were to do so, he would absolutely be blasted into ashes by the Medusa Queen, whom even Haibudong could only turn his head and flee from. Her eyes, containing murderous intent, stared at Xiao Yan with a chilling coldness. The moment his finger touched her tongue, a pale flush of pink rose on the Medusa Queen's smiling face. Of course, the icy killing intent was even more pronounced. Her beautiful eyes shifted slightly. The Medusa Queen quickly glanced at Xiao Yan's arm, which was thickly covered in green light, and then looked at the jade-like green finger inserted into her mouth. Instantly, her long, narrow pupils slightly narrowed. In a flash, her pearly white teeth fiercely bit down. Ah! 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 Bitten fiercely on his finger, Xiao Yan widened his eyes, the pain causing him to deeply inhale a breath of cold air. He was about to struggle free. Suddenly, a slender, jade-white arm shot out bizarrely, firmly gripping Xiao Yan's neck. In those beautiful eyes, the threat was very strong. Being grasped by the neck by the Medusa Queen, Xiao Yan's body was forced down slightly. Instantly, his chest was pressed against the two soft mounds. In a flash, a surge of lustful fire furiously burned up from his lower abdomen, making Xiao Yan's breathing slightly rapid, forcefully suppressing the lustful fire in his body. Xiao Yan did not dare to make any aggressive moves towards this calamity star at this moment. He immediately lay straight upon the Medusa Queen's soft body, gulp, gulp. Their faces were extremely close, even each other's breathing could be heard clearly. From Xiao Yan's finger being bitten by the Medusa Queen, a streak of crimson blood slowly stained her rosy lips. The redness on her face became more vivid, making the already beautiful Medusa Queen even more attractive, like a blood-colored rose. As the blood stain slowly seeped out, Xiao Yan's expression slightly changed. He could perceive that the colossal energy of the fire lotus seed wrapped around his right arm was rapidly being devoured by the Medusa Queen through her biting. No need to worry. Giving it to the heaven-swallowing python is giving it to her is also giving it. As long as the residual energy of the fire lotus seed leaves the body, it's the same. Comforting himself like this in his heart, Xiao Yan tried to calm himself down. His gaze roamed over her perfect, seemingly flawless face. Even though the two parties were on opposite sides, he still couldn't help but secretly praise her beauty in his heart. Gradually, as the Medusa Queen greedily devoured it, the green glow on Xiao Yan's right arm, which was visible to the naked eye, slowly faded. After a short while, the green light finally completely dissipated, and the jade-like green finger also slowly returned to normal. The residual energy was successfully expelled from the body. Xiao Yan had just breathed a sigh of relief in his heart, when his expression instantly drastically changed. This was because he discovered that after absorbing this energy, the Medusa Queen still showed no intention of stopping. Her long, narrow beautiful eyes glanced at him with a cold smile. With a slight inhalation, all the dou qi in Xiao Yan's cyclone was stirred up in waves. It was actually faintly being sucked out through his meridians. "Stop your mouth." Perceiving the change in his cyclone, Xiao Yan's expression wildly changed. He urgently shouted. Ignoring Xiao Yan, the Medusa Queen's eyes smiled coldly. Her jade hand, grasping Xiao Yan's neck, clenched a little tighter, instantly causing Xiao Yan's face to flush red. Damn it! Sensing that the dou qi in his body was about to surge out through his finger, Xiao Yan's eyes were bloodshot. His left hand slowly rose. The green flame fiercely surged up and fluttered. Instantly, the temperature within the room surged. Seeing the green flame in Xiao Yan's left hand, the Medusa Queen's expression, though undetectable, slightly changed. Evidently, she also recognized that this flame was the green lotus core flame that had once made her suffer. Stop your mouth. I know, with your strength, killing me is very simple, but your action now is somewhat inconsistent with your reputation. I think your strength must not be fully recovered, right? Xiao Yan spoke with a grim, solemn face. His hand, covered in the green flame, stretched out slightly, and he whispered, "You should recognize this, right? Immediately let go of my hand, otherwise, even if I risk everything today, I will make you suffer heavy injuries." Hearing Xiao Yan's threat, the chill in the Medusa Queen's eyes became even denser. In her position, no one had ever dared to threaten her like this. Immediately, her beautiful eyes stared intensely at Xiao Yan, containing imposing killing intent. Being stared at so intensely by the Medusa Queen, Xiao Yan's scalp also felt somewhat numb. However, he was also clear that in this kind of situation, even knowing that the consequence might not be good, he could only be unyielding and resolute. After all, if he were soft, this fiercely infamous beautiful snake woman would swallow him whole, bones and all. Silence filled the room. The eyes of the two people stared intensely at each other, neither willing to yield first. As the standoff continued, just as Xiao Yan couldn't help but feel the urge to retreat, the Medusa Queen, unable to endure the green flame constantly drawing closer, glared fiercely at Xiao Yan, then reluctantly opened her mouth. Seeing the Medusa Queen open her mouth, Xiao Yan swiftly pulled his finger back. His foot lightly tapped the bed, and his body explosively shot back. In midair, his two hands clasped together, and immediately pulled again. The green flame was also condensed into a long whip. The fire whip wrapped around Xiao Yan's body, defending against any imminent attack. After completing his defense, Xiao Yan then raised his head to look at the bed. Instantly, his eyes widened forcefully. He only saw the beautiful snake woman with the fiery figure sitting casually on the bed. Sensing Xiao Yan's gaze, the Medusa Queen's face smiled coldly. She reached out and tore a piece of the blanket, quickly covering her body. That alluring curve, even covered by the blanket, still looked extremely enchanting. Beside the bed, a pale purple snake tail gently hung down, swaying slightly, releasing an attractive wildness. Xiao Yan saw the Medusa Queen staring at him with such icy coldness. The corner of his mouth curved. He raised his hand in a defensive posture. Do Qi rapidly circulated in his body. He stared at the Medusa Queen with vigilance, preventing her from launching a sudden attack. "You are the first human who dared to threaten me with words." Staring intently at the handsome face for a long time, the Medusa Queen finally slowly spoke. Her voice was like a thrilling lute, captivating men and making them itch. "I also feel an itch. You are also the first woman who bit me." Xiao Yan forcefully raised his neck, his voice dry and hoarse. The Medusa Queen extended her soft, crimson tongue, lightly licking her rosy lips. This casual action could also cause one's heart to feel an alluring stirring, that energy just now, it should be the lotus seed condensed in the middle of the green lotus core flame. Right. If it hadn't been for the heavy injuries I sustained while collecting the green lotus core flame earlier, I absolutely would not have left half a trace of such a treasure. Xiao Yan laughed dryly, not replying. The green flame in his palm still fluttered. Staring deeply at the green flame in Xiao Yan's hand, the Medusa Queen shook her head, and said softly, "I didn't expect that in the end, the biggest benefit would also be taken by you. That Guhi must be extremely angry, huh? Heh, Your Majesty the Queen didn't successfully evolve at that time. You also gained no small benefit." Xiao Yan chuckled. "I endured that kind of suffering for this evolution, which you also noticed." The Medusa Queen said indifferently, "If it hadn't been for the critical moment, I would have personally taken action to kill you." Heh. Hearing this, Xiao Yan laughed awkwardly. It turned out she had already noticed him hiding nearby earlier. "However, you human brat. I must admit, your guts are very big. Her tail lightly pointed towards Xiao Yan. A trace of sinister aura appeared on the Medusa Queen's cheeks. Amidst that captivating voice, a hint of imposing killing intent was subtly contained. You not only dared to venture alone into the depths of the desert, but you also dared to raise my evolved form as a pet. This audacity, after so many years, is truly the first time I have seen it. Sensing the killing intent in the Medusa Queen's voice, Xiao Yan shrugged, and said innocently, I didn't raise you as a pet. It just likes to follow me. Then, why not let me call you Master? The Medusa Queen's long, narrow pupils curved into a dangerous arc. Her final words were slightly drawn out, her enchanting voice making Xiao Yan's face, which had a decent composure, instantly turn red. His body slightly shifted. Between his legs, his pants seemed to bulge significantly. This voice was truly terrifyingly alluring. You were right earlier. My current self truly doesn't have the power to kill you. But after I awaken, trust me, I will personally take your life. Her slender jade hand pointed far away at Xiao Yan. The Medusa Queen lightly raised her arrogant head, enunciating each word, imbued with chilling killing intent. You human brat, just you wait. In this world, the person qualified to make this queen call him master has not been born yet. At the very least, you are far from qualified now. Smiling sinisterly, the Medusa Queen's soft body slowly leaned back. Instantly, her body pressed against the blanket, forming an alluring curve. Immediately, a fierce light shot out, and the Medusa Queen's body slowly shrank, finally transforming back into the small heaven-swallowing python snake. Looking at the heaven-swallowing python, Xiao Yan's entire body instantly went limp and fell down. Only now did he realize that he was completely drenched in sweat. Drenched in sweat, sitting on the bed area, Xiao Yan heavily panted a few breaths of stale air. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with his sleeve, shaking his head with a bitter smile. It had only been a few minutes. Yet it was more exhausting than a major battle with a dosher. However, fortunately, the Medusa Queen, for some unknown reason, had significantly weakened her power. Otherwise, Xiao Yan feared he would have truly been directly slaughtered by her today. Still slightly afraid, he exhaled a breath. Xiao Yan slowly stood up. He moved his gaze and suddenly stopped at a coil of fire snake continuously running along his body. It was the up and down fluttering green flame. He instantly froze, his mouth slightly parted. This green flame whip was created by Xiao Yan pulling it along when he rapidly retreated just now. Seeing its relaxed posture, it seemed to have cost him very little mental effort. After the flame whip was deployed, as it left Xiao Yan's hand, it automatically circled around his body. Looking at its state, it seemed like a spiritual artifact protecting its master. His eyes stared blankly at the green flame whip coiling around his body, the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth twitched slightly. Although he had become much more proficient in controlling the green lotus core flame through over 20 days of training, he also understood in his heart that based on his flame control ability, it was absolutely impossible to control the flame in front of him so agilely with his hand. However, the reality presented before his eyes made him ecstatic. His mind was in a haze. After being stunned for a while, Xiao Yan slowly recovered his senses. He reached out to gently touch the circling green flame whip. As soon as his hand touched the green flame, it obediently transformed into a massive green flame, adhering to Xiao Yan's hand, slightly surging. His 10 fingers tapped each other, then slowly contracted. Immediately, 10 streams of curved green flame shot out. With a wave of his arms, the green lotus core flame on his hand sometimes rose and sometimes fell. Its agile appearance was countless times stronger than when Xiao Yan refined medicinal pills a few days ago. What exactly happened? As his thoughts continuously moved, the green lotus core flame transformed into various shapes. The look of surprise on Xiao Yan's face grew thicker. After gaining control, he clearly felt that the green lotus core flame was extremely close to him. Compared to before, its closeness had suddenly increased several-fold. And the subtle sense of resistance from before had quietly weakened significantly. Frowning in contemplation for a long time, Xiao Yan's mind suddenly stirred. He muttered in a low voice. Could it be, because of the fire lotus seed? The moment this thought appeared in his heart, it actually made Xiao Yan understand a little better. The fire lotus seed and the green lotus core flame shared the same source. Now that he had absorbed the essence energy of the fire lotus seed into his body, he had coincidentally made the compatibility between his body and the green lotus core flame more and more perfect. With this analysis, Xiao Yan's tightly furrowed brow slowly smoothed out. A hint of joy appeared on his face. He hadn't expected that consuming the fire lotus seed would also have such an unexpected wonder. The sudden increase in compatibility actually made Xiao Yan more excited than completely healing his injuries. After all, injuries could be healed sooner or later, but the compatibility of the body with the green lotus core flame could only be slowly increased through continuous grinding over time. Thus, the distinction between the two rare and practical benefits was instantly clear. With a hint of joy on his face, Xiao Yan's eyes stared intently at the green flame on his 10 fingers. The flame slightly swayed. After a moment, it actually condensed into 10 extremely sharp fire lotus spikes on his 10 fingertips. Because of his compression, the destructive force contained within these 10 flame spikes was undoubtedly somewhat intense. His contracted finger lightly flicked. The 10 flame spikes suddenly shot out. A scorching force formed a small green halo around them. Just as these spikes were about to pierce the wall, Xiao Yan's finger contracted. Immediately, the spikes were as if pulled back, forcefully returning along their original path, shooting back towards Xiao Yan. Smiling as he watched the returning green flame spikes, Xiao Yan's fingers calmly reached out. The 10 spikes immediately integrated into his fingers. The green flame on his palm slowly dissipated. Xiao Yan looked at his hand, which showed no trace of injury, and nodded in awe. With his previous control over the green lotus core flame, he was clearly unable to achieve the ability to recall the heavenly flame after shooting it out. But now, after absorbing the fire lotus seed, Xiao Yan's control over the heavenly flame had reached a point where he could complete this demanding flame control maneuver. Every trace of green lotus core flame required Xiao Yan to expend a lot of do qi to absorb it from within his cyclone into his body. If every time he mobilized it, the heavenly flame could not be recalled after being shot out, that was undoubtedly an extremely wasteful and extravagant act. If he were to be so wasteful during battle, it would be detrimental to his own life. But now that he could release and recall the heavenly flame, Xiao Yan naturally felt extremely satisfied with this development. Enjoying the extreme agility of the green lotus core flame a second time, Xiao Yan only then slowly collected all of it back into his body. His hand made a grasping motion towards the lotus platform hovering in midair. It immediately transformed into a streak of green light, entering his storage ring. Putting this away, Xiao Yan twisted his waist. The bones throughout his body clashed, making a cracking sound. A feeling of comfort flooded him, making Xiao Yan exhale a breath of relief. Clenching his 2 fists, he fiercely punched out. His fists and palms surged with powerful wind, displaying an extraordinary posture. Sensing the immense force that suddenly erupted from his taut body, Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. Although this heavy injury caused him much suffering, regardless, his body could now unleash combat power surpassing his pre-injury state. Thus, this injury truly seemed worthwhile. Standing in place, Xiao Yan closed his eyes in contemplation. His mind quickly checked his body once more. Then, opening his eyes, he clasped his hand and smiled faintly. After the infusion of the fire lotus seed, I now have the strength of a 6-star dosher. Smiling joyfully, Xiao Yan slowly walked towards the bed. He looked at the heaven-swallowing python coiled in the blanket, chuckling. Watching Xiao Yan slowly approach, the heaven-swallowing python's purple snake eyes stared intently at his smiling face. It ignored him, turning its head away to look at its soft body lying on the bed. Evidently, Xiao Yan's sudden move of infusing energy earlier had left the heaven-swallowing python, which had just gained rudimentary intelligence, feeling slightly resentful in its heart. Seeing the heaven-swallowing python acting like a sulking child, Xiao Yan helplessly shook his head. He reached out to gently stroke its body. After seeing that it still didn't react, he smiled bitterly, took out a bottle of purple spiritual liquid from his storage ring, and uncorked it. A faint, hot fragrance slowly wafted out. As soon as the purple spiritual liquid was taken out of the ring, the limp heaven-swallowing python on the bed abruptly lunged up. It turned its head to look at Xiao Yan's grinning face, then glanced at the light purple fragrant purple spiritual liquid. A trace of yearning flashed in its eyes. After a moment of hesitation, unable to endure the greed in its heart, it quickly slithered towards Xiao Yan's face. Its snake tongue flicking out, making a hissing sound. Smilingly offering the bottle, the heaven-swallowing python wagged its tail. Its body transformed into a streak of light, instantly appearing in front of the bottle. Its head sought out the opening, and its tongue greedily sucked the liquid inside the bottle. Because Xiao Yan's intention at this moment was to dispel the resentment in its heart, he did not stop its greedy absorption. He only watched the purple spiritual liquid in the bottle slowly diminish, a look of heartache showing on his face. When the heaven-swallowing python had absorbed nearly 1/10 of the purple spiritual liquid in the bottle, it finally stopped absorbing. Its slightly dazed head slowly moved away from the bottle's mouth. A hint of intoxication appeared in its purple eyes. Looking at the heaven-swallowing python shaking its glistening head, Xiao Yan smiled bitterly and shook his head. He carefully collected the purple spiritual liquid. His warm hand stroked its body, and he said helplessly, "Little fellow, are you not satisfied yet?" Having eaten his treasure, the heaven-swallowing python did not avoid Xiao Yan this time. It shook its slender neck. A burst of purple light suddenly appeared in its eyes. Its mouth opened, and with a sound of "foo," a streak of purple flame suddenly shot out from its mouth. The fierce flame instantly burned the wooden chair in the room into a pile of black charcoal. Slowly raising his head to look at the crackling pile of charcoal, Xiao Yan's mouth twitched slightly. A moment later, he lowered his head, looking at the heaven-swallowing python calmly spitting out continuous streams of flame. Xiao Yan shook his head with a wry smile. Did this fellow think it could just eat as much purple spiritual liquid as it wanted? The dense purple fire energy, which was intense, could easily gather into an attack power that was not weak at all. Even Yunji had to be wary of this kind of purple fire before. Helplessly watching it acting as if it were playing, occasionally spitting out a stream of fire, Xiao Yan sighed. Just as he was about to stand up to tidy the messy room, his body suddenly froze. His eyes stared intently at the purple flame. An idea quietly emerged from the depths of his heart. What if I use the purple fire created by the purple spiritual liquid, and fuse it with the green lotus core flame, and then create the angry Buddha lotus flame? Even if the power is not superior, it won't be much weaker, right? Furthermore, with my current strength, is it possible to control it? His hand slowly stroked his chin. Xiao Yan muttered in a low voice. In the room, Xiao Yan slowly rubbed his chin, his expression thoughtful. After half a day, he suddenly flipped his palm, and a transparent bottle appeared on his hand, inside which was the purple spiritual liquid. He removed the cap. Xiao Yan dipped his finger into it, carefully touching a little onto his fingertip. Immediately, a burning, stinging pain transmitted from that spot. Pulling his finger back, Xiao Yan stared intently at a drop of purple spiritual liquid on his fingertip. The dou qi in his body circulated, passing through his finger, gently touching that drop of purple spiritual liquid. Instantly, a small, dull sound rang out, and a small cluster of purple flame flared up. Following the flame's surge, the temperature rapidly increased, causing Xiao Yan's eyes to show a hint of charm. The temperature is not bad. But it's a bit of a pity that one drop of purple spiritual liquid produces so little purple fire. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. But his tone still carried regret. There wasn't much purple spiritual liquid left to begin with, and one drop can only create this much purple fire. If I use it up, the loss would truly outweigh the gain. Xiao Yan stared intently at the bottle containing the purple spiritual liquid, frowning as he whispered. But that little fellow didn't absorb much, yet when it spits out purple fire, it's as fierce as a flamethrower. Slowly turning his head, Xiao Yan looked at the heaven-swallowing python, saying with doubt, His eyes stared intently at the heaven-swallowing python lying on the bed. After a long while, Xiao Yan frowned. After a moment of observation, he discovered that when the heaven-swallowing python was about to spit out purple fire, a little liquid seemed to seep out of its fangs. The originally small purple fire, upon contact with the liquid, instantly swelled its volume by more than 10 times. Is it because of this liquid? Whispering softly, Xiao Yan smiled. His hand curled, and another bottle appeared in his palm. He immediately chuckled and slowly approached the heaven-swallowing python. After a period of deliberate pressing, ignoring the heaven-swallowing python's resentful eyes, Xiao Yan finally obtained nearly half a bottle of the faint green liquid. Bringing it to his nose, he smelled a faint saliva-like odor. Xiao Yan's expression was somewhat odd. Shaking his head, he glanced at the heaven-swallowing python, secretly thinking, is this little fellow a female? Gently holding the 2 bottles containing the 2 types of liquid. Xiao Yan pondered for a moment. He suddenly waved his hand, taking out a dark red cauldron from his storage ring. After placing it on the table, he lightly flicked his finger onto the cauldron. A green flame shot out from Xiao Yan's hand. Instantly, the cauldron was filled with the flame's astonishing temperature. Seeing the flame surge inside the cauldron, Xiao Yan touched his storage ring with his hand, taking out a few herbs whose entire bodies were dyed fiery red. With one look, one could tell they contained fire attribute energy. Waving his hand, he threw them into the cauldron. Then, controlling the green flame, he subjected them to repeated refinement, turning them into a pinch of red powder. Once the red powder appeared, Xiao Yan used 2 hollow tubes to absorb 1 drop of the liquid from the heaven-swallowing python's mouth and 1 drop of purple spiritual liquid, respectively. He then dripped them into the cauldron. Looking at the flame surging inside the cauldron, Xiao Yan smiled, his 10 fingers becoming extremely agile. The green flame continuously increased and decreased its temperature according to his thoughts flickering through space. Although this kind of flame variation was an extremely difficult test of flame control for alchemists, having refined and used the green lotus core flame, Xiao Yan had become proficient in this complex manipulation. Inside the cauldron, the beautifully dancing green flame, after a long while, gradually withdrew its temperature. The fierce flame also slowly vanished. Finally, it transformed into a small fire particle through the spout and burrowed into Xiao Yan's finger. Although pill refinement consumes a lot of energy, it's good to recover even a little. Looking at the green flame entering his body, Xiao Yan smiled. His hand formed a seal, and a surge of force flipped the cauldron upside down. 3 red medicinal pills appeared from the cauldron, lightly shooting into Xiao Yan's hand. Catching the 3 medicinal pills, the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth couldn't help but curve into a smile. This couldn't fundamentally be called a medicinal pill, as they lacked the characteristics of one. This was because if one swallowed it without good preparation, it would instead lead to a somewhat miserable fate. He lightly took 1 red pill with his finger and put it into his mouth. After feeling a scorching thermal energy in his mouth, the dou qi in his body rapidly circulated, then clashed with that thermal energy. When they clashed, Xiao Yan slightly curved his mouth. The purple flame, with its astonishing heat, fiercely flared up. It was then wrapped in dou qi on his palm. The flame burned intensely, with ample power. Lightly exhaling a mouthful of hot air, Xiao Yan looked down at the fiercely surging purple flame on his hand. This time, the contained purple fire had reached the level of the green lotus core flame. Xiao Yan comfortably inhaled a breath. To achieve such an effect with just 1 drop of purple spiritual liquid, 1 drop of the heaven-swallowing python's saliva, and some fire attribute herbs, he felt extremely satisfied. Let's temporarily call this the purple fire pill. Holding the 2 medicinal pills in his hand, Xiao Yan smiled. Now he wanted to fuse the purple fire and the green lotus core flame to create the angry Buddha lotus flame and see exactly how much power it held. It seems I need a target, huh? With the purple fire pill, a smile surged onto Xiao Yan's face. Turning around, he put the heaven-swallowing python, which was sleeping with its head bowed from fatigue due to spitting fire, into his sleeve. Then, chuckling, he walked out of the already Shaking room, going to find a guinea pig to test the true power of the angry Buddha lotus flame. Iron Mercenary Group. On the training ground, it was currently the training time for everyone in the group, and most of the members were present. The sun had reached its peak. Everyone, drenched in sweat, was sparring and practicing techniques. On the square, in a shaded spot, leader Xiao Ding was standing there, his gaze occasionally sweeping over the field, nodding slightly. Mr. Luo Bo, it seems the brothers from the Sand Mercenary Group also have decent strength. During this time, you've been a great help. Looking at the field, which was a period of integration, where barriers had been removed, and many mercenaries were standing in pairs, Xiao Ding turned his head and smiled at Luo Bo beside him. It's all thanks to leader Xiao Ding's excellent methods. I am merely the executor. Luo Bo shook his head. The corner of his eye held reverence as he looked towards Hai Budong. During a chance encounter, he had seen Hai Budong take action. Thus, he was extremely clear that this old man possessed terrifying strength. Since Xiao Yan could invite him to the mercenary group, Luo Bo's heart couldn't help but feel a bit wary. Thus, when he heard Xiao Ding, he quickly replied politely. Xiao Ding naturally knew about the person behind him that he was wary of. He only chatted briefly, then tilted his head, looking at Hai Budong, who was leaning against a tree with a bored expression. He smiled and said, "Haha. Old Mr. Hai, are the herbal shops in Stone Desert City lacking the medicinal ingredients you need? Don't worry, I've sent people to search in nearby areas. If there is any news, they will report back quickly. You are a thoughtful young man." That brat Xiao Yan, after telling me the names of the medicinal ingredients, burrowed into his room and hasn't been seen since, Hai Budong said to Xiao Ding, a smile showing on his face. Speaking ill of others behind their backs doesn't seem very nice, huh? A faint laugh rang out from behind everyone. The familiar voice made everyone turn their heads, seeing Xiao Yan approaching. With a smile. Your injuries are better. Seeing Xiao Yan's spirit and vitality were better than before, a trace of surprise appeared on Hai Budong's aged face. Yes. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. AI. Truly a freak. Such heavy injuries, yet he's completely recovered in less than a month. Seeing Xiao Yan nod, Hai Budong immediately smiled bitterly and shook his head. At the same time, his heart was also shaken by Xiao Yan's methods. Smiling and shaking his head, Xiao Yan chatted with Xiao Ding and the others for a while. Then, his gaze suddenly fluttered and landed on Luo Bo. Smiling, which, however, caused Luo Bo to feel a little fear. Leader Xiao Yan. Seeing Xiao Yan slowly approaching, Luo Bo quickly greeted him. Mr. Luo Bo, are you getting used to the Iron Mercenary Group? Xiao Yan asked with a chuckle. Looking at Xiao Yan's smiling expression, Luo Bo wanted to flee immediately. The news of the Mo family great elder's death had almost spread throughout the eastern province of the Jiama Empire. Although everyone was unclear who was the one who took action, Luo Bo was clearly aware in his heart that the person who took action was absolutely the seemingly harmless youth in front of him. Mr. Luo Bo. Do you mind helping me experiment with something when you have some free time? Xiao Yan said with a smile. Then, without waiting for Luo Bo to nod, he stepped out of the shade. Although his strength had returned to the dosher level, Xiao Yan was clearly aware that maintaining a sudden gentle attitude towards a person like Luo Bo would constantly make him wary, confused, and afraid. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, Luo Bo was stunned, then could only force a bitter smile, nodding and lifting his feet to follow. Xiao Ding, Xiao Li, and the others, seeing this somewhat strange behavior, glanced at each other casually and then followed out of curiosity. Slowly walking to a corner of the training ground and stopping, Xiao Yan smiled at the uneasy Luo Bo. Unleash all your defensive capabilities. I want to test the power of something I've just modified. Hearing this, the corner of Luo Bo's mouth immediately twitched, his expression slightly convulsing. It turned out he was the target. Xiao Ding and the others were all high-ranking members of the Iron Mercenary Group. Seeing them gathering here, the members on the training ground immediately clustered around, curiously looking at Xiao Yan and Luo Bo. Be careful. After reminding the pale-faced Luobo, Xiao Yan's finger flickered. A red medicinal pill appeared. He then put it into his mouth. A moment later, his mouth slightly curved. Purple flame surged up on Xiao Yan's palm, separated by Do Qi. Gently manipulating the purple flame, his right hand calmly reached out. The green flame slowly surged up. Looking at the two hands manipulating flames of different colors, Hai Budong was slightly stunned. His expression immediately changed drastically. He muttered, "Damn it, does this brat intend to use that technique?" Fear gradually surfaced in Hai Budong's eyes. At this moment on the field, Xiao Yan had begun to slowly bring his two palms together. Seeing Xiao Yan's movement, Hai Budong's expression finally changed completely. He fiercely stomped his foot. His figure, in everyone's shocked eyes, shot straight into the sky like a bolt of lightning. He shouted with a sharp voice, "Xiao Yan, you lunatic. You almost died last time, and you want to do it again." Looking up at the furious Hai Budong in the air, Xiao Yan laughed awkwardly. He hadn't expected this old fellow to actually be so afraid of his angry Buddha lotus flame. Stunned by the agitated Hai Budong in the sky, Xiao Yan shook his head with a wry smile after a moment. He raised his hand, which held the two flames, and smiled, "Old Hai, in my current state, I can't unleash the immense destructive power from the last time. I've modified the angry Buddha lotus flame now. The uncontrollable situation won't happen again." Hai Budong observed the purple fire in Xiao Yan's hand. Realizing it wasn't a heavenly flame. Although its temperature was high, it was far inferior to the pale white flame Xiao Yan manipulated last time. How many secrets does this person truly hide? First green fire, then white fire, and now he uses purple fire. He truly makes others unable to see through him. A thought arose in his heart. After a slight sigh, Hai Budong looked towards Xiao Yan, shook his head, and bit his teeth. "You're inherently a lunatic. I'm too lazy to care what modifications you've made. If you want to play, play by yourself. I still recall how you nearly killed me last time." Having said that, the icy wings on Hai Budong's back slightly shook. His figure, in everyone's eyes, became a small black dot in a flash. He then stopped and looked down. The explosion from Xiao Yan's last use of the angry Buddha lotus flame had caused this person, previously known as the Ice Emperor, to develop a psychological fear. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen to avoid it in front of so many people. Helplessly looking at Hai Budong flying far away, Xiao Yan lowered his head. He glanced at the surrounding eyes of Xiao Ding and the others, which were all odd. He lowered his hand and said, "That old gentleman seems to have a small amount of courage." Cough. Hearing this, Xiao Ding and Xiao Li both coughed a few times. Although Hai Budong's age was quite advanced, and his strength was somewhat terrifying, seeing his previous reaction, they also felt slightly uneasy in their hearts. They exchanged glances, then forced a dry laugh and said to Xiao Yan, "Little Yan, what exactly are you going to experiment with?" "Just something I researched. I want to test if it's successful or not. It failed last time, and it nearly blew me and the old man up. So he seems a bit scared now. But you don't need to worry. I intentionally reduced the power this time. Even if it fails, it won't cause the immense destructive force like last time." Xiao Yan said casually, shaking his head. Hearing Xiao Yan's tone, which carried a slight uncertainty, cold sweat immediately appeared on the foreheads of Xiao Ding and Xiao Li. Although neither of them knew Hai Budong's exact strength, the fact that he could condense Do Qi into wings meant his strength was certainly no lower than Do Wang. To nearly blow up such a powerful expert, they couldn't imagine what kind of terrifying, abnormal thing Xiao Yan had used. The two looked at each other, then, as if by prior agreement, looked up at the black dot in the sky. They slowly retreated a few steps, forcing a laugh and saying, "We think perhaps we should retreat a little to give you more room." Having said that, the two retreated in perfect unison, stopping only when they reached the edge of the square. Seeing the two leaders make such a gesture, the other members of the Iron Mercenary group who were surrounding them also felt a slight fear in their hearts. Weighing safety against curiosity, the crowd quickly retreated. The originally crowded training ground suddenly became empty and wide. Looking at the field, which instantly became empty, Xiao Yan helplessly shook his head. He turned his head and smiled at the pale-faced Luo Bo. Leader Xiao. Leader Xiao Yan, I think maybe we should stop. Change the person tomorrow. His heels felt weak, and his legs trembled. Luo Bo was truly terrified by Hai Budong's unusual reaction. What was Hai Budong's strength? He was a Do Huang expert. He was ranked among the strongest experts in the entire Jiama Empire. For such a terrifying expert to react so unusually to Xiao Yan's creation, it was hard to imagine how abnormal that thing truly was. Luo Bo suspected that he had somehow displeased Xiao Yan recently, which was why he was being targeted now. Mr. Luo Bo, rest assured, the power of the angry Buddha lotus flame is far inferior to the last time now. With your strength, absolutely nothing will go wrong. Seeing Luo Bo so frightened that his face was pale, Xiao Yan helplessly shook his head and comforted him. Looking at the seemingly harmless appearance and handsome face, Luo Bo wanted to cry but couldn't shed tears. Why did this kind of thing have to happen to him? After sighing about his own bad luck for a long time, he could only nod with a bitter smile. The fierce Do Qi in his body was violently activated. It then fiercely surged out, forming an extremely sturdy earth-yellow Do Qi sand robe outside his body. The moment he took action, he summoned the Do Shi's special technique, the Do Qi sand robe. It seemed Luo Bo was genuinely on alert. Looking at Luo Bo, who was like an enemy confronting a great army, summoning his Do Qi sand robe, Xiao Yan helplessly nodded. He raised his two palms. The green flame and the purple flame surged up simultaneously. His two palms moved towards each other, slowly, gradually drawing closer. As the turbulent bursts of thunder rang out in Xiao Yan's palms. However, fortunately, the explosion this time was not as terrifying as the last time, so the defense on Xiao Yan's hands could still maintain control. Focusing intently on slowly fusing the two flames, Xiao Yan tried to recall the mysterious sensation of entering the final moment last time. His dark pupils stared intently at the area where the flames were intertwining. There, the green and purple dual-colored flames were rapidly flying like sharp streaks of electricity. Far away in the sky, Hai Budong frowned, looking at the violently fluctuating energy around Xiao Yan. He whispered, "The fluctuation this time is much smaller than the last time. It seems you've made some changes this time. However, if this thing is not controlled properly and explodes, the destructive power won't be small. After all, the green flame is still a heavenly flame." AI. That lunatic, always thinking of bizarre things. Hai Budong smiled bitterly and shook his head. However, despite saying that, his heart still held a slight envy for Xiao Yan's courage to conduct the experiment. Back then, when he was young, in the Chuyun Empire, he had once met an expert who could also manipulate a heavenly flame, but that expert treated the heavenly flame like his own ancestor, meaning with fear, not reverence. The notion of Xiao Yan wanting to fuse the heavenly flame with another flame was unimaginable. For many experts, this action was almost seeking death. On the field, Xiao Yan's eyes were fixed intently on the flames being compressed into a green-purple fireball. After a moment, his dark pupils widened suddenly. His 10 slender fingers continuously moved in front of his head. For the first time controlling the fireball in a calm state, Xiao Yan finally understood that although it seemed easy, the consumption of flame mantra Do Qi was truly terrifying. His 10 fingers had only moved about 7 or 8 times, yet the Do Qi inside his cyclone was already halved. Trying to recall the transformation when the angry Buddha lotus flame formed before, the green and purple flames flickered in Xiao Yan's dark eyes. After a moment, his hand suddenly froze. His soul power transformed into a thin thread, arching and burrowing into the raging flame. After the soul power penetrated, the raging energy contained within the green-purple flame began to slowly vanish. Almost instantly, the sparks, which were like hedgehog quills and were previously shooting out non-stop, completely silenced. Staring intently at the green-purple flame in his palm, which had become calm, Xiao Yan breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Raising the flame with both hands, he closed his eyes. The soul power penetrating the flame slowly began to change the shape of the flame. As the soul power slowly started, the flame, like a rubber ball, began to slowly ripple. Its originally large volume began to rapidly shrink. After a while, a rudimentary form of a dual-colored lotus vaguely appeared within the green-purple flame, whose color was constantly changing. After another moment, the green-purple glow slowly dissipated. A dual-colored green-purple lotus formed, floating in Xiao Yan's palm. In the sky. Looking at the dual-colored green-purple lotus formed in Xiao Yan's hand, Hai Budong narrowed his eyes and muttered. His control has truly become more and more proficient. If he could have controlled the angry Buddha lotus flame to form this shape last time, I fear, the 8-winged black serpent emperor would have been blasted to death on the spot. In the future, if he uses the fusion of 2 heavenly flames again, with this level of control, I think among Do Huang experts, except for a very few abnormal ones, no one else would be able to directly withstand such a terrifying explosion. Lightly exhaling a breath of cold air, Hai Budong's expression was complicated as he stared at the black-robed youth standing on the ground, whispering. On the field. Xiao Yan held the dual-colored green-purple lotus in his hand. He looked up at Luo Bo, who was completely enveloped in the Do Chi sand robe. His slightly pale face showed a small smile. He flicked his finger, and the lotus immediately transformed into a streak of light, fiercely shooting towards Luo Bo. Silently watching the distance between Luo Bo and the angry Buddha lotus flame. Getting closer, Xiao Yan slowly stretched out his hand. He then tightly clenched it, and whispered. Explode. As the shout ended, the dual-colored green-purple lotus flying in the air suddenly swelled, violently exploding. Boom. Roar. A deafening explosion, rumbling, occurred. On the training ground, a large crack appeared at the spot of the explosion, then rapidly spread outwards. It almost covered the entire square. Perfect execution. In the sky, Hai Budong slowly closed his eyes and whispered. At the same time, his heart also felt a slight tremor, and his heartbeat quickened a bit. An explosion rang out on the training ground, causing everyone to involuntarily cover their ears. After a moment, they recovered from their fear, glanced at each other, and then turned their eyes towards the field, which was filled with dust and smoke. On the field, Xiao Yan was steady and calm, but his breathing was somewhat rapid. His face was slightly pale. This time, the imitation angry Buddha lotus flame's requirement for soul power and Do Chi was much less than the last time, but it still couldn't be underestimated. With this requirement, I fear I can only use it 3 times before exhausting all the Do Chi in my body. Sensing the sharp decrease in Do Chi and soul power, Xiao Yan whispered. He suddenly raised his head. Looking at the swirling dust, he lightly flicked his sleeve, and a powerful force appeared, blowing away all the dust. Once the dust cleared, a massive deep pit immediately appeared in everyone's eyes. Instantly, everyone on the training ground widened their eyes. The deep pit reached 4 to 5 zhang, and its area was not small at all. Beside the pit, many large cracks, like a spider web, continuously spread out, almost covering the entire square. Where is the person? Xiao Yan's gaze swept around, but he didn't see Luo Bo's figure. He asked in surprise. Cough. Cough. Just as Xiao Yan asked in surprise, a fierce bout of coughing suddenly came from the deep pit. Then, a hand slowly emerged. Finally, a completely scorched, battered figure stood up and walked out. Judging by the body, it could be identified as Luo Bo. At this moment, Luo Bo was not only completely scorched black, but the sturdy Do Chi armor that he had summoned to protect his body was also trembling slightly. The Do Chi armor had reached its limit. It finally let out a small, dull cracking sound, then slowly peeled off Luo Bo's body, revealing a pale face that still bore traces of fright. Looking at the figure that looked like it had rolled in charcoal, Xiao Yan tentatively asked. Mr. Luo Bo. Are you all right? Hearing Xiao Yan's question, Luo Bo slowly raised his head. Looking at the handsome face of the youth in front of him, His body couldn't help but shudder. His pale face forced an extremely awkward smile. Leader Xiao Yan. If that attack of yours had been any closer, I fear I would be utterly wiped out now. Looking at Luo Bo's diminished aura, Xiao Yan clearly knew in his heart that although he had the Do Qi armor defense, he had chosen not to evade. Standing still like a wooden stake to allow the fire lotus to strike him. It then exploded in front of him. This action was indeed somewhat foolish, causing his body to suffer an extremely terrifying explosive force. Thus, even though Xiao Yan's strength was only a 6-star dosher now, the explosion had heavily injured Luo Bo, who was a 4-star dosher, leaving him unable to fight. His eyes lowered to look at Luo Bo's blood-seeping hands. Xiao Yan's usually unfathomable eyes showed a hint of gentleness. He slowly approached, patted his shoulder, and smiled. I'm truly sorry. It was the first time I modified it, so I didn't get the force right. Haha. Rest for a few days, and you'll be fine. As the leader of a mercenary group for over 10 years, Luo Bo had his own sensitivities. Sensing the hint of gentleness Xiao Yan revealed, he immediately felt joy and excitement in his heart. Since the time the Sand Mercenary Group confronted the Iron Mercenary Group, which nearly led to their annihilation, this seemingly gentle youth had held some hostility, even killing intent, towards him. At the same time, Luo Bo was even clearer that if Xiao Yan hadn't wanted to quickly expand the Iron Mercenary Group, the Sand Mercenary Group would probably have been completely wiped out. Having personally witnessed this youth's unchanging expression as he turned others into ice, Luo Bo completely did not doubt the ruthlessness in the heart of this young man. Although the Sand Mercenary Group had now merged into the Iron Mercenary Group, Luo Bo felt that Xiao Yan's vigilance towards him had not diminished. Luo Bo could only smile bitterly about this. Over the past month in the Iron Mercenary Group, he had come to understand Xiao Yan's capabilities even better. In this place, as he came into closer contact, under the pressure of terrifying strength, the initial thoughts of betrayal in Luo Bo's heart were scattered like dust. Now, Luo Bo could almost say that he had gradually begun to see himself as a member of the Iron Mercenary Group, rather than the leader of the Sand Mercenary Group. But even so, Xiao Yan's intention to guard against him had not diminished. Luo Bo could only feel helpless about this in his heart. However, he knew very well that this was only natural and couldn't be blamed. But today, when Xiao Yan's guard against him lowered, when a hint of gentleness appeared in Xiao Yan's eyes, it made him feel a little excited in his heart. He knew that the life-risking act of being the target for that attack just now had greatly reduced Xiao Yan's wariness of him. Worth it, very worth it, Luo Bo continuously said in his heart. His originally pale face suddenly flushed red with excitement on both cheeks. Xiao Yan's hand gently patted Luo Bo's shoulder. He then took out a bottle of high-grade healing medicine from his storage ring, handed it to him, and smiled. First, treat your injuries well. We'll talk after you've fully recovered. From now on, you are a core member of the Iron Mercenary Group. With your strength, you have a considerable responsibility to bear. The Iron Mercenary Group is in a period of rapid growth. We will need your help greatly in the future. Xiao Yan's words undeniably showed trust in Luo Bo. Therefore, hearing these words, Luo Bo took the healing medicine, his entire body trembling. He didn't care much about the trust of others, but it was different with an expert. With the strength of Xiao Yan and Hai Budong, Luo Bo felt extremely honored to be trusted. Leader, please be at ease. I will ensure that the members of the Sand Mercenary Group truly become part of the Iron Mercenary Group. Tightly gripping the jade bottle, Luo Bo's body slightly bowed, and he spoke with a trace of excitement. As long as you keep your focus on the Iron Mercenary Group and trust me, in the future, you will gain things that you, yourself, won't believe. Looking at Luo Bo's excited and loyal demeanor, Xiao Yan smiled, his tone carrying a certain implication. Hearing Xiao Yan's mysterious tone, Luo Bo was startled, then respectfully acknowledged. Haha, hurry and recuperate your injuries. Tomorrow, Old Hai and I will be leaving Stone Desert City. You are the strongest member in the Iron Mercenary Group. So, during the time I'm away, I may need you to look after the Iron Mercenary Group more. Xiao Yan said softly. Leaving. Hearing this, Luo Bo asked in surprise. Going to the imperial capital. There are some matters there waiting for me to take care of. Xiao Yan smiled casually. Looking at the stable figure of the black-robed youth, Luo Bo coughed a few times, settled his excited feelings, and nodded. On the side of the square, every gaze was still fixed in shock. Xiao Yan walked over to Xiao Ding and Xiao Li, who still looked frightened and miserable, and laughed. Not recovered yet. That boy, originally you chose Luo Bo intentionally, not randomly. I didn't expect you to have just resolved a potential danger. Xiao Ding glanced at Luo Bo in the center of the field, whispering to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan smiled, not denying his intention. He raised his head, looking at Hai Budong slowly descending from the sky, and said softly. There's no choice. Tomorrow, Old Hai and I must leave Stone Desert City. Not resolving the hidden danger truly leaves me uneasy. Leaving tomorrow? So soon? Hearing this, Xiao Ding and Xiao Li were stunned, furrowing their brows as they asked. Yes, I originally planned to go to the imperial capital a month ago. It was only delayed so long because of my injuries. I can't stay any longer now. Xiao Yan said with a smile. In a month, are you truly planning to go to the Cloud Mist sect? Looking at the smiling Xiao Yan, Xiao Ding's voice suddenly lowered a bit, asking. Yes. I must go there. Xiao Yan curved his mouth, nodded slightly, and said slowly, his resolve unwavering. The Cloud Mist sect is a difficult powerhouse to deal with. After the Mo family great elder died by your hand, although you concealed your identity at the time, if you appear at the Cloud Mist sect, your identity will be exposed. By then, even if you defeat Nalin Yenran, I fear those old monsters at the Cloud Mist sect won't easily let you off. Xiao Ding said worriedly. If they truly push me too far, in the end, it will just be a mutually destructive struggle. Xiao Yan smiled faintly. He raised his head, looking at Hai Budong, and shrugged with a laugh. Old Hai, isn't that right? Your big brother is right. The Cloud Mist sect is not easy to deal with. Seeing Xiao Yan looking at him, Hai Budong smiled bitterly. AI, do as you wish. A 1-year bodyguard agreement. It seems you had planned on me a long time ago. Haha. To have the help of a doe. Huang expert, if I casually brought up a small suggestion, would that be a great sin for me? Seeing Hai Budong's helpless expression, Xiao Yan joked. Hearing this, Hai Budong could only smile bitterly and shake his head. Xiao Yan reached out and plucked a branch, taking a few leaves and putting them into his mouth to chew, savoring the faint taste in his mouth. He turned his head to look towards the distant north, where the colossal power of the empire, the Cloud Mist sect, was located. We'll see when the time comes. If they truly want to push me too far. Even if I risk being heavily injured a second time, I will create an angry Buddha lotus flame right there at the Cloud Mist sect. Hearing the youth's calm, murmuring voice beside him, an expression of helplessness appeared on Hai Budong's face. He smiled bitterly, sighing. Truly a lunatic. If they provoke you, even the Cloud Mist sect, despite their strength, will have to pay a heavy price. Night slowly descended. The darkness enveloped the entire earth. High above in the sky, the silver moon hung high, casting a faint, pale moonlight, slowly dispelling the lingering darkness. In the courtyard, there was a patch of stillness. The three brothers, all clad in soft, comfortable training robes, looked up at the stars high above. They then picked up the wine cups beside them, raised them, and drank. Emptying the wine cup in his hand with one gulp, Xiao Yan tilted his head to look at his two slightly tipsy older brothers. He then slowly stood up, took out 2 scrolls with a somewhat ancient style on their covers from his storage ring, and gently placed them beside the small bamboo table in front of Xiao Ding and Xiao Li, looking at their bewildered eyes. He smiled and said, "These are 2 profound tier mid-level cultivation techniques. 1 wood attribute, 1 lightning attribute. Their attributes are very suitable for the 2 older brothers. Inside them, there is also a complete set of famous profound tier high-level Do techniques. The 2 combined are perfectly matched, their power immeasurable. Hearing these words, Xiao Ding and Xiao Li, who were slightly tipsy, suddenly sobered up. Their 4 eyes simultaneously brightened, and they stood up. This was nearly equivalent to a profound tier high-level cultivation technique in the Jiama Empire, which belonged to a treasure whose value was difficult to assess without close inspection. Not to mention, it also came with a complete set of Do techniques. Thus, its value was equal to a profound tier high-level cultivation technique, and undoubtedly, it was more precious. The 2 extremely rare and precious scrolls on the small bamboo table were too tempting. Even the usually calm Xiao Ding's face showed a hint of longing. Meanwhile, Xiao Li, the moment Xiao Yan finished speaking, hastily grabbed the silver scroll with one hand. He then looked at it with loving reluctance, muttering, if these 2 items were taken to an auction, if they didn't fetch 3 million gold coins, it would truly be degrading to the owner's status. Receiving the remaining green scroll, Xiao Ding gently stroked it. Its softness made one feel an extremely comfortable sensation. Having frequently dealt with magical beasts, Xiao Ding clearly understood, this wood-like material is at least the hide of a 4th-rank magical beast or above, he immediately exclaimed in awe. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded, simultaneously taking out 2 sets of profound tier high-level cultivation techniques and Do techniques. The list of people who could possess this caliber of items in the Jiama Empire certainly wouldn't exceed 10. If Xiao Yan hadn't had a master like Yao Lao, who was like a living treasure trove, he fundamentally wouldn't have the means to take them out like this. I planned to give the cultivation techniques to you brothers last time, but because I left in a hurry, I forgot. Xiao Yan said with a smile. On his trip to the Snake People tribe, Xiao Yan had acquired these 2 cultivation techniques from Yao Lao. However, due to his frantic journey to absorb the heavenly flame, he only now had time to remember this matter. Although this cultivation technique is extremely rare. But since you've taken it out and gifted it to us, we won't pretend to reject it hypocritically. Otherwise, it would only make you unhappy. Xiao Ding deeply understood Xiao Yan's personality. After a moment of contemplation, he still did not refuse this gift. He smiled and nodded, no longer using polite words, and carefully put the scroll away in his heart. Watching the 2 brothers put the cultivation techniques away, Xiao Yan smiled. He looked up at the stars. He whispered, with everything properly arranged, I can now leave with peace of mind tomorrow. Xiao Ding lightly nodded, filling the wine cup beside him. He stood up, looked towards Xiao Yan, and smiled, little man, your eldest brother and second brother will wait here for you to make a name for yourself in the Jiama Empire 1 month from now. Cheers. Seeing the surge of heroic passion suddenly arise in Xiao Ding, Xiao Yan's heart felt a slight tremor. He received the wine cup, emptying it in one gulp. He clearly understood the meaning of Xiao Ding's words. If he could truly defeat Nalin Yenran, and successfully leave the Cloud Mist sect, then Xiao Yan, he feared, would instantly shock the entire Jiama Empire overnight. Naturally. Little Yan. If you don't return from the Cloud Mist sect, Big Brother and I won't immediately seek revenge for you. Instead, we will endure. Gritting our teeth, we will relentlessly endure. Until we grasp enough strength, then we will leave the Cloud Mist sect with a wound that reaches deep into their bones. Xiao Li patted Xiao Yan's shoulder. Although he was smiling, he exuded a somber, thunderous aura that chilled one's heart. In the desert, there was a saying, fierce beasts showing their fangs are not the most frightening. The most frightening are the poisonous snakes hidden beneath the yellow sand. They won't easily bare their fangs, but once the time is right, with one fatal strike, they will instantly shoot out from the yellow sand. The 3 Xiao family brothers. Xiao Ding was calm and resourceful, Xiao Li was insidious and ruthless, and Xiao Yan was unfathomable. The 3 had different personalities, yet they all made their opponents feel uneasy and chilled in their hearts. Looking at Xiao Li's sinister expression, Xiao Yan cast aside all worries in his heart. He nodded slightly in appreciation. He drank another cup, emptying the harsh, hot liquor, which made his throat burn. The 3 looked at each other and laughed loudly. Early the next morning, Xiao Yan and Hai Budong left without alarming anyone in the Iron Mercenary group, just like every time they left before, silently departing without saying goodbye. High above the clear blue sky, two streaks of light suddenly approached from afar, followed by a gust of fierce wind. A moment later, they vanished like streaks of lightning at the end of the horizon, only leaving behind expressions of envy from the passers-by on the road below. Xiao Yan, wouldn't it be faster for us to fly directly to the imperial capital than to ride on the flying magical beast? That speed is much slower than our flight. The ice wings on his back slightly vibrated. Hai Budong's eyes drifted, glancing at the scenery rapidly receding behind him. He turned his head. The fluctuating Do Qi brought a wave of sound, which sounded somewhat discontented, into Xiao Yan's ears. The long journey of thousands of miles somewhat taxed Xiao Yan's internal strength. Hearing Hai Budong's words, he couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly in his heart, thinking, the distance from here to the imperial capital is thousands of miles. Before, if I had Master Yao Lao's assistance, I could barely hold out. Now, Master Yao Lao is in slumber. With my 6-star dosher strength, how can I persevere and fly non-stop? By then, I fear it will be difficult to avoid him noticing the loophole. Although he thought this in his heart, Xiao Yan naturally couldn't reply like this. The purple cloud wings on his back vibrated. His speed slightly decreased. He smiled and said, "Haha, I just want to take advantage of traveling on the flying magical beast to save a little free time on this long journey and research the heavenly flame a bit. Moreover, Old Hai, don't you also want to find medicinal ingredients for the spirit pill? Stopping at some large cities to search will increase the chances of obtaining the medicines a little more." Hearing these words, Hai Budong's expression finally eased. He nodded helplessly, recalling that he was still missing many famous and rare medicinal ingredients. He could only refrain from complaining further. Seeing Hai Budong no longer bearing any ill will towards him, Xiao Yan lightly sighed in relief in his heart. The purple cloud wings on his back suddenly flapped. His speed instantly surged. His figure transformed into a streak of light, vanishing at the end of the horizon. They flew from early morning until the moment of the afternoon sun. The outline of a city only then vaguely appeared in the eyes of the two. Circling and descending outside the city, the two figures, looking dusty and tired from the journey, then walked into the city. At this time, Xiao Yan had once again put on the second-rank alchemist black robe. Although the large heavy Xian ruler on his back made him look somewhat bizarre, the city guards did not dare to step forward and stop an alchemist. Thus, the two smoothly entered this considerably large city without any hindrance. After entering the city, Xiao Yan and his companion checked every significantly sized pharmacy one by one, searching meticulously. Hai Budong's goal was the medicinal ingredients that could refine the spirit pill, while Xiao Yan was secretly looking for medicines that could quickly restore soul power. However, although the two spent considerable effort searching within the pharmacies in the city, they both frowned upon closer inspection. Such high-grade medicines were simply too rare. Immediately, they could only leave disappointed. After checking the very last pharmacy, after a moment, the two, still unwilling to give up, walked around the city's auction house one more time. Regrettably, they found nothing the same way. Standing on the street, the two looked at each other, both sighing helplessly. They could only give up their search and headed to the city's central magical beast flight station. Relying on his reputable identity as an alchemist, the two smoothly boarded two luxurious flying magical beasts specifically for alchemists' travel, without any unexpected incidents. Not long after, they departed the city. The journey by flight was indeed a bit dull. Fortunately, the two were not the kind of people with impatient temperaments. They both sat cross-legged on the seats, entering a cultivation state. They slowly waited until they reached their destination. During the flight, Xiao Yan did not engage in conversation with any of the other alchemists traveling with them. However, during an occasional encounter, he was surprised in his heart, because he discovered that the last time he traveled to the imperial capital, the alchemists, even those from the Jiama Empire, looked a bit arrogant and overbearing. Naturally, what surprised these alchemists about Xiao Yan at this moment was his youthful appearance and the second-rank alchemist badge on his chest. This dealt them a considerable blow. Having experienced uncomfortable travel by flight before, Xiao Yan was somewhat resistant in his heart to exchanging ideas. If you want to know what they exchanged, you should read the previous chapters, with others on the flying magical beast. So, even seeing these alchemists chatting animatedly, he still did not join in. However, during one accidental eavesdropping, one of the alchemists mentioned something about an alchemist grand meeting. Xiao Yan finally remembered the invitation he had received from Alchemist Guild President, Master Otto, in Black Rock City last time. So these alchemists are all participating in the Alchemist Grand Meeting. Nodding slightly, Xiao Yan finally understood why such a grand-scale Alchemist Grand Meeting was being held within the borders of the Jiama Empire. If it's the Alchemist Grand Meeting, that means many alchemists will gather. Wouldn't each of them clearly possess some natural treasures? A thought suddenly arose in his heart. Xiao Yan's eyes gradually lit up. If he could go to the Alchemist Grand Meeting first to search for rare treasures that could restore soul power and awaken Yaolao before reaching the Cloud Mist sect, then Xiao Yan could truly feel at ease about this trip to the Cloud Mist sect. With this thought in his mind, Xiao Yan's demeanor became urgent. While he waited anxiously inside the flying magical beast for nearly 7 days of flight, he finally saw the outline of the vast imperial capital of the Jiama Empire, Jiama Holy City. Standing on the flying magical beast, Xiao Yan looked down at the large city shrouded in mist. He slowly exhaled a breath. 3 years of arduous training, he had finally arrived here. As the flying magical beast slowly descended, Xiao Yan's gaze suddenly shifted towards the northern direction of the imperial capital. There, a mountain range, which could be called colossal and huge, stood out clearly, resembling a famous giant dragon, its spiritual aura surging up to the heavens like thunder. That place was the great behemoth of the Jiama Empire. The location where the Cloud Mist sect resided. Cloud Mist sect. Nalan. Yenran, the waste from back then, has arrived on schedule. His eyes stared intently at the majestic mountain hidden within the faint mist. Xiao Yan's body, at this moment, intensely trembled. Damn it, I'll never ride this thing again. That slow speed is truly unbearable. Walking out of the crowded flow of people descending from the flying magical beast, Hai Budong took a deep breath of fresh air, cursing in a low voice. Seeing Hai Budong's slightly upset face, Xiao Yan smiled. He raised his head, his gaze sweeping over this vast imperial capital. He couldn't help but sigh in admiration. In terms of sheer size and majesty among all the cities Xiao Yan had witnessed, Jiama Holy City stood first. Truly the imperial capital of the Jiama Empire, its aura is absolutely unparalleled. Emitting a sound of awe, Xiao Yan said with a smile. Hai Budong had no interest in looking at the mundane architecture. His gaze swept around, and he suddenly asked, "When are you going to the Cloud Mist sect?" "In half a month." Xiao Yan pondered, trying to slightly space out the 3-year agreement, and said, "Still so long. Where are we going now?" Hearing this, Hai Budong frowned, then said helplessly, Let's first go to the imperial capital's auction house to check. That is the largest trading hub in the Jiama Empire. They should have something we want. After that, we'll also take a trip to the Alchemist Guild headquarters." Xiao Yan rubbed his chin, smiling. "I'm thinking of checking out where this alchemist grand meeting will be held. Moreover, alchemists love collecting various rare medicinal ingredients. Perhaps, in that place, you can find the ingredients for the recovering spirit pill. The Alchemist Grand Meeting is a rare and grand event for the Jiama Empire. It would be a pity to miss it." Hai Budong did not object to Xiao Yan's arrangement. Stroking his grizzled beard, he said with interest, "However, this Alchemist Grand Meeting is truly worth looking into. For an alchemist, besides the opportunity to exchange ideas with peers, it also holds a unique significance. Anyone who can show their talent there will have a future that is truly hard to estimate. Each Alchemist Grand Meeting attracts the attention of many large powers. And alchemists with good refinement skills are objects of welcoming, sought after by various forces. The treatment they receive is truly enough to make people envious. Hearing Hai Budong's slightly exaggerated words, Xiao Yan smiled, but somewhat shook his head, saying, alchemists are inherently a special profession welcomed everywhere. Even if they are taken in by large forces and receive extremely good treatment, their freedom is still somewhat restricted. That's not very beneficial. Not beneficial? How can that be? Do you know Gu He? Hearing Xiao Yan's words, Hai Budong rolled his eyes and scoffed. Pill King Gu He, in this Jiama Empire, I fear truly no one doesn't know him. Xiao Yan shrugged. He said indifferently. Not only did he know him, but he had also indirectly fought him. He is the most typical dark horse in the history of the alchemist grand meeting. Before that, not many people knew the name Gu He. But from the moment he showed his talent in the grand meeting, he was noticed by the supreme sect master of the Cloud Mist sect, who then made him an elder of the Cloud Mist sect. At that time, Gu He was only a 4th-rank alchemist. But after a few years, under the enormous financial support of the Cloud Mist sect, he advanced 2 ranks. Moreover, his reputation has spread ever since that year, making him the respected pill king he is today. Hai Budong chuckled, so, if it hadn't been for the backing of the Cloud Mist sect, he feared it would have taken him at least 20 more years to achieve his strength today. Xiao Yan frowned, masking his surprise. He hadn't expected that Gu He would have such a background. Alchemists are indeed a rare profession, but they are also an extremely expensive one. Although pill refinement places great emphasis on talent, without a constant supply of medicinal ingredients, no matter how high the talent, it's difficult to rapidly increase one's alchemist rank. But if they have a large force behind them that can constantly supply medicinal ingredients, they can remain focused, not wasting time traveling around, searching for ingredients. With such dedication, the achievements gained are naturally better than those of a freelance alchemist. Therefore, many alchemists also hope to find a sponsor who can provide for them at this alchemist grand meeting. The two slowly walked to the middle of the intersection. Hai Budong's hands were tucked into his sleeves, speaking reluctantly. Perhaps, but I have no interest in that kind of thing. Xiao Yan shrugged. With a master like Yao Lao, who was extremely experienced, guiding him, Xiao Yan's detours were inherently minimal. Thus, he was able to transform from a person who couldn't even recognize herbs into a young 2nd-rank alchemist in just 3 short years. Precisely because of this, he was not clear about the difficulty ordinary freelance alchemists face in rapidly increasing their strength. After all, not everyone is as fortunate as he is. Naturally, with your alchemist skills, in this Jiama Empire, even the Cloud Mist sect wouldn't be qualified to make demands on you. Hai Budong shook his head and said with a laugh. A high-level alchemist who could refine 6th-rank medicinal pills, let alone in this Jiama Empire, even looking across the entire Doqi continent, could proudly boast. Xiao Yan smiled faintly, not taking the bait. Excluding Yao Lao's influence, his own rank was only a 2nd-rank alchemist. Naturally, having endured nearly a year of arduous training in the Great Desert, and possessing the Green Lotus core flame, he was confident that his refinement skills would not be inferior to a 3rd-rank alchemist. However, he was also clear that even a genuine 3rd-rank alchemist held very little appeal to a Do Huang expert like Hai Budong. Hai Budong was willing to stay by Xiao Yan's side and willingly humble himself as a bodyguard because he mistakenly believed Xiao Yan could refine a 6th-rank medicinal pill. Thus, he made the difficult decision to agree to protect Xiao Yan's safety during his trip to the Cloud Mist sect. If Hai Budong knew the truth in the future, and Yao Lao had not yet awakened, his angry departure would be a minor issue. If he became upset, he might even forcefully threaten Xiao Yan to return the mysterious map fragment. After all, cooperation is always established on the prerequisite that the difference in strength between the two parties is not too great. And Xiao Yan, a dosher and a 2nd-rank alchemist, clearly did not qualify to cooperate with a Do Huang expert. Sigh, it seems I must try my best to expedite Master's awakening. Otherwise, once Hai Budong gathers all the medicinal ingredients, what will I do about refining that 5th-rank medicinal pill? Sighing inwardly, Xiao Yan suddenly realized. Without Yao Lao by his side, he was currently in a vulnerable stage, completely restricted everywhere. After all, the experts Xiao Yan interacted with were truly far beyond his actual strength's reach. Who could imagine that a mere dosher could be so strong within the echelon of Do Huang experts? If it were an ordinary person, trying to make a strange Do Huang expert act as a bodyguard by his side with the strength of a dosher, this was undoubtedly a feat more difficult than ascending to heaven. However, Xiao Yan, with Yao Lao's assistance, was able to open this difficult door, taking the lead in making contact with super experts. But precisely because he faced this kind of super expert, Xiao Yan, who lacked truly strong capabilities, had to be constantly cautious, and forcefully pretend to be calm and composed, not daring to reveal any truth. Sigh. Strength, huh? As long as I can reach the Do Wang level, I can keep up with Yao Lao's pace. By then, I won't necessarily need to rely on borrowed power. Gently lamenting with a bitter smile in his heart, Hai Budong's laughter suddenly cut short Xiao Yan's contemplation. Hey, we've arrived at the auction house. Hearing this, Xiao Yan's steps slowly stopped. He raised his head, looking at the colossal building and the unique symbol appearing at the end of the wide intersection. Surprise immediately appeared on his face. He shook his head and sighed, truly the headquarters of the Spectre family. This scale is indeed incomparable to the branch in Wuten City. The Spectre family is one of the three great families in the Jiama Empire. They have a long history and abundant wealth. Even the Mo family in Yan City, compared to them, is undoubtedly just a newly rich family that suddenly emerged. Hai Budong said with a laugh. His tone held disdain for the Mo family who wished to dominate the northeastern provinces of the empire. A family whose strongest expert was merely at the Douling level. With this kind of strength, they still aspired to dominate. Truly they didn't know their own limits. If it weren't for the Cloud Mist sect as their backing, the Mo family would have been secretly dealt with by some strong experts who disliked them long ago. Smiling and nodding, Xiao Yan looked at the building, which was like a bottomless pit, a large monster swallowing the continuous flow of people. His two hands lightly tucked into his sleeves. He tilted his head and whispered to Hai Budong, "Let's go. Let's go see what this #1 auction house in the empire has to offer. I hope we can find something we want." After saying this, Xiao Yan took the lead, slowly stepping onto the flagstone-paved ground at the end of the wide intersection. Following closely behind was Hai Budong. Slowly walking closer to the colossal Spectre auction house, the surprise on Xiao Yan's face became even stronger. His body, like a fish, smoothly navigated through the crowded flow of people. Xiao Yan's face remained expressionless as he passed through the crowd. Occasionally, his sleeve lightly fluttered. Immediately, the soft sleeve was enveloped in a thin layer of Do Qi, which then fiercely struck the hand that had reached out from the crowd to grab the storage ring on his finger. Every time his sleeve struck, the hand instantly turned crimson. Indifferently glancing at the person clutching their hand, which was sweating from the pain, a cold smile appeared on the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth. This kind of trick was something he had seen too often in the market he managed in Wuten City. Ignoring these flies, Xiao Yan's figure moved. He finally passed through the crowded entrance. Under the eagle-like, vicious gaze of the guards beside the main door, he walked in calmly. Entering the auction house, his eyes softened slightly. The noise from the outside seemed to be cut off at this moment. The short distance of a few zhang felt like two distant extremes of heaven and earth. Slowly stopping his steps, Xiao Yan's eyes swept around. He immediately curved his mouth, looking with surprise at the colossal hall, which resembled a crystal city. Walking inside the hall, heavily armed guards were visible everywhere, their expressions unchanging. These guards wore the Spectre family's badge on their chests. Evidently, they were the elite force of the Spectre family. The moment Xiao Yan entered the hall, he clearly sensed no less than 20 sharp gazes sweeping over various parts of his body. After a long while, the sharp and malicious gazes slowly receded. Truly worthy of being one of the three great families of the Jiama Empire. This kind of display is truly not small, sighing in awe. Xiao Yan slightly turned his head. Looking at Hai Budong, who was like a phantom, following closely behind him, he then slowly proceeded towards the center of the hall. In the hall, the flow of people continuously moved between countless crystal cages. Inside the cages, various surprising strange objects were displayed. And beneath these items, a price code was marked. However, the price for each item was at least 300,000 gold coins. This extravagant price was enough to make many people look up and stop their steps. This is only the outer area. The items sold here are not considered too precious. At the headquarters of the Spectre family, the auction levels are classified similarly to cultivation techniques. They are strictly divided into 4 ranks: Heaven, Earth, Profound, and Yellow. Among them, Heaven is the highest rank. However, the Heaven rank auction house, I fear, is rarely opened, sometimes not even once in a year or two. But once it is announced open, it signifies that the Spectre auction house is about to auction something of extreme importance. At that time, almost more than half of the strong experts and leaders of the forces in the Jiama Empire will gather. I recall I participated once that year. At that time, the item the Spectre auction house auctioned seemed to be an egg of the 6th rank fire scale. Crocodile. It is said that as long as one successfully hatches that fire scale crocodile egg, it is a born Dowang expert. Moreover, as long as it is properly nurtured, it can sooner or later advance to the Dowang level. A trace of surprise flashed across Xiao Yan's face. A born 5th rank Dowang. Truly terrifying. If anyone obtained that item, wouldn't they be able to acquire an expert capable of contending with the 10 great experts of the Jiama Empire in a short period of time? The Earth rank auction house is also rarely opened. The Profound rank is common, and the Yellow rank is permanently open. Seeing Xiao Yan's shocked expression, Hai Budong smiled, continuing his introduction. Evidently, he was a regular customer here before, so he spoke clearly about the rules of this place. Somewhat interesting, Xiao Yan said with an interested smile about this kind of classification. To enter the 3 ranks of Heaven, Earth, and Profound auction houses, one must possess a recognized asset value. Barring any unexpected circumstances, to enter the Profound rank auction house, one needs at least 1 million in assets. All right. Do you have enough money on you? As if recalling something, Hai Budong suddenly asked. I think I have about 200,000 or 300,000. Xiao Yan scratched his head, smiling awkwardly. This only qualifies you to enter the Yellow rank auction house. Hai Budong rolled his eyes. He thought that an alchemist of Xiao Yan's caliber would carry at least 1 million in liquid assets. Towards Hai Budong's words, Xiao Yan could only helplessly shrug. Just as he was about to speak, his gaze suddenly shifted towards a corner of the hall. This was originally a spot for high-level personnel within the Spectre auction house to enter and exit. It was calm here before. It seemed that some high-status VIP was about to emerge from this area. Looking at the agitated crowd here, Xiao Yan blinked in confusion. Tilting his head, his gaze penetrated the heads of the men who had suddenly become excited, like rutting wolves. Then, he vaguely saw a bit of bright red color and a vague, graceful figure. Under his gaze, Xiao Yan saw a pair of red boots. The heel of the boots was slightly sharp, clicking with each step on the smooth stone floor, emitting a series of pleasant, crisp sounds, like a beautiful musical note. His gaze shifted up a little. A pair of long, snow-white, somewhat stimulating beautiful legs appeared in his sight. Not bad, he evaluated in his heart. However, Xiao Yan's composure was naturally a bit better than that of the surrounding men in the hall, whose faces were filled with longing. He still maintained a calm smile. His gaze, with a slight look of appreciation, slowly moved upwards. Finally, penetrating the gaps, he saw a beautiful, charming, and captivating face revealed. Instantly, a look of surprise slowly appeared on his face. He whispered, "How is it her?" In the crowd, following the crisp sound of approaching footsteps, the woman's vague, beautiful figure finally slowly walked out. This woman was clad in a bright red, form-fitting brocade robe. The exquisite, luxurious robe was perfectly tailored, displaying the woman's amazing and perfect curves. Beneath the brocade robe was a pair of dazzling, snow-white long legs. The smooth, slender area looked incredibly soft, stirring a passionate impulse in men's hearts. This woman exuded a seductive beauty all over. Under the gaze of her long, narrow peach blossom eyes, one might involuntarily reach into their pocket to actively pull out gold coins to purchase some high-priced item that they fundamentally did not need. For many men, she was a true enchantress. A faint smile on her face remained beautiful. Her soft, full, and mature body was like a ripe peach filled with sweet juice, causing some of the men in the hall. Their lower bodies vaguely showed signs of arousal. Instantly, some people in the hall looked embarrassed, carefully retracting their stomachs. The beautiful woman's social circle seemed very good. Since walking out until now, people continuously greeted her with smiles. Perhaps some of the greetings were purely directed at her beauty. However, the majority clearly stemmed from reverence for her status. The woman in the brocade robe handled the surrounding guests gracefully and calmly, only giving a faint smile, cutting off any boring people who wanted to speak aggressively. Her beautiful peach blossom eyes, which seemed to be nurtured by spring rain, casually swept across the hall. Everyone who made eye contact with her, which vaguely contained a seductive charm, involuntarily had their throat constrict slightly. A burning fire surged in the depths of their eyes. It seemed that when these people returned home, their wives or maidservants feared they would be mercilessly conquered. These guys are fantasizing by the imagined figure of this beautiful and attractive woman. Her beautiful peach blossom eyes slowly swept across the hall. Just as she was about to retract her gaze, her sight suddenly froze. Her steps also came to a halt. Her eyes stared intently at the handsome youth in the black robe carrying a large black ruler, standing beside a crystal cage not far away. Immediately, a look of disbelief appeared in her beautiful eyes. As the focal point of the hall, the brocade woman's movement undoubtedly caused everyone to follow her gaze. However, when they saw the handsome black-robed youth, they were equally stunned. Seeing the woman's extremely rare abnormal demeanor, they did not feel a trace of jealousy towards the youth. Ignoring the surrounding gazes as sharp as swords, Xiao Yan lightly smiled at the brocade woman staring at him. His smile was gentle. His dark pupils were still as clear as they were 3 years ago. Looking at the calm smile, which was unchanged from 3 years ago, the brocade woman finally believed that the black-robed youth in front of her was indeed the Xiao family boy from Wutan City who had pretended to be mysterious. The crisp sound of footsteps rang out. The brocade woman slowly walked towards Xiao Yan. After a moment, she stopped right in front of him. Only now, through close contact, did she realize that the boy who was only chest-high to her back then was now standing eye-to-eye with her. Little brother Xiao Yan, after 3 years, even I almost didn't recognize you. Laughing at the handsome youth in front of her, the brocade woman lightly inhaled a breath. Her full chest, under the wrapping of the brocade robe, seemed to intentionally rise high. Extremely alluring. Her smiling face slightly lifted, and she said with a smile, "Sister Yafei is also becoming increasingly seductive and captivating. It's just a pity that you left Wutan City. I don't know how many hearts were broken." Xiao Yan lightly inhaled the intoxicating body fragrance wafting from the woman in front of him. His mind suddenly recalled the first time he entered the auction house that year, and the series of sneaky, bad actions he took against her in the end. He joked softly. This beautiful brocade woman in front of him was unexpectedly the former top-level auctioneer at the Spectre Auction House's Wutan City branch, Yafei. After leaving the family for experience, I naturally had to return and take over some matters. However, my return is truly thanks in no small part to you. You haven't returned these 3 years, so I never had the chance to thank you. Meeting you here today, I will thank you now. Yafei gazed into those clear, dark pupils, which were the same as 3 years ago. Having been accustomed to seeing eyes filled with lust and possessiveness daily, she found that she actually preferred those clear eyes even more. Her rosy lips curved. Tucking her hands behind her back, she slightly bent forward, smiling faintly at Xiao Yan. From the perspective of the two, this gesture of thanks from Yafei caused the brocade robe to slightly pull down. Instantly, a deeply recessed, dazzling area of snow-white skin, filled with an alluring curve that could drive one crazy, appeared right before Xiao Yan's eyes. His face gradually flushed crimson. Thank you for listening to the story on KTN Storyverse. Please like and subscribe to support the channel.